Chapter 907. How dare you? How dare you kill my brothers and sisters? Come out and die. Before Chen Guang could reach the city gate, a roar resounded from the outside. It's the voice of the 10 Directions Martial Emperor. Sure enough, he came in person. Old Bao, who was beside Chen Guang, shrunk his neck back when he heard this. His face was full of fear. Didn't you say that he came to collect taxes? Does he want to avenge the thunder-mad demon saber? Are they on good terms? Chen Guang didn't care about old Bao's fear. Only he knew that he wasn't bragging, he was just stating the truth. Old Bao's footsteps became slower and slower. My lord, it's not like that. The relationship between the 10 Directions Martial Emperor and the Thunderclap Mad Devil Saber isn't that good. He's probably just looking for an excuse to get angry so that he can deal a heavy blow today. It's not good. Maybe he wants to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs this time. Fortunately, my lord doesn't have a woman. Chen Guang almost couldn't help but kick Bao Bo. What the hell was he talking about? Old Bao, have you heard of a saying? Bao Bo was confused. What? Coward. Bao Bo didn't understand. What does that mean? Chen Guang snorted. It means that if a person is too cowardly, he won't have a future for the rest of his life. Do you understand? Lord Saint Emperor is right. Bao Bo nodded and quickly took out a small notebook. Christmas Day of the Saint Emperor era, on the night, the Saint Emperor said, this was why Chen Guang admired Bao Bo. Bao Bo's bootlicking skills were top-notch, and he was practically the same as Little Bob in the Transient Ocean. However, when the two of them approached the city gate, old Bao became terrified again. Lord Sage Emperor, although I know that you are talented, just like how you easily defeated the Thunderclap Berserk Demon Blade not long after you became a martial disciple, not every martial master in our world can rule over 10 cities. The Martial Emperor of the 10 Directions is one of the top martial masters in the entire first layer. Shut up, Bao Bo. If you keep being a coward, I'll beat you up. Chen Guang lifted his leg and walked forward without looking back. In the huge true martial Saint Emperor city, there was no longer any festive atmosphere. All the houses that were decorated with lanterns had quietly removed the lanterns in front of their doors and were desperately hiding things in their cellars. Although everyone had a powerful city lord who was also a martial artist, just like old Bao, no one thought that the Holy Emperor was a match for the Martial Emperor of the 10 Directions. On this side, just as Chen Guang was about to open the door, the huge ironwood city gate was blasted open with a loud bang and fell to the ground. With his hands clasped behind his back, Chen Guang stood at the city gate and looked forward. Under the night sky, there was a long snake formation formed by a row of torches. The man walking at the front was wearing a purple gold crown and a black feather robe. He must be the legendary 10 Directions Martial Emperor. My lord, this is, old Bao followed behind Chen Guang, trembling with fear. When he spoke, his legs were trembling. Chen Guang knew that he had a shadow in his heart, so he didn't bother to teach him anymore. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the Martial Emperor of the 10 Directions with a smile. I plan to go to the next city first and then go to your 10 Directions city to find you in a few years. I didn't expect that you would come first. Before the Martial Emperor of the 10 Directions could say anything, a dark, thin, short man jumped out and said coldly, how dare you not kneel in front of the Martial Emperor? How dare you talk nonsense? Chen Guang finally couldn't help laughing out loud. Did I hear it right? Martial Emperor. You are just a martial artist. How dare you call yourself a martial emperor? Aren't you more arrogant? You have already called yourself an emperor. Stop talking nonsense and kneel down. Seeing that Chen Guang dared to mock the martial emperor of the 10 Directions, the dark, thin, short man shouted angrily and flashed forward to kill him. As soon as he made his move, chi surged around him. He was a senior martial disciple. Chen Guang didn't hesitate either. He raised his palm lightly and used the floating cloud palm, a martial venerable level technique he had just learned 2 days ago. He fanned out with the back of his hand. It seemed to be a light move, but it was actually heavy. It seemed to be a slow move, but it was actually as fast as lightning. Before the dark, thin, short man's sharp claws could grab Chen Guang's shoulder, he was hit in the face by Chen Guang's floating cloud palm. It wasn't that he didn't see it. He also wanted to dodge, but his whole brain seemed to be frozen at that moment. He had clearly seen it with his eyes, and his mind was screaming that something was wrong, but his body couldn't react in time to dodge. The man let out a mournful wail as he flew sideways and crashed into the noticeboard next to the city gate. His legs gave way and he died without any hesitation. The pupils of the martial emperor of the 10 directions, who was sitting calmly on the fishing platform and watching the show, shrank slightly. What? You're already a martial artist. Chen Guang shook his wrist. The floating cloud palm, which seemed gentle but was actually fierce, was very compatible with his current masculine and domineering inner strength. That's right, and then. You specially came to find trouble with me, but you didn't inquire about the information clearly. You're very confident. As he spoke, Chen Guang thought to himself, if he decisively admitted defeat, should I consider letting him go? Seeing that he didn't deny it, the martial emperor of the 10 directions was not afraid at all. He just sneered and said, good. Very good. In just a year, you've been promoted from a martial disciple to a martial artist. In the entire first layer, you can probably be considered a rare peerless genius. Chen Guang gave him a thumbs up and said, good eyesight, thank you for your praise. Humph. Do you think I'm really praising you? Do you think that in the past 100 years, no other genius has appeared under the rule of my martial emperor of the 10 directions? But why has no one been able to shake my position? Do you understand? It's because most of the so-called geniuses are like you. As soon as they have a little momentum, they don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They think they're invincible and don't know how to restrain themselves. And I, the martial emperor of the 10 directions, love to strangle geniuses like you in the cradle. Go to hell. As soon as the martial emperor of the 10 directions finished speaking, he suddenly took out a long sword from behind him and straightened his body to stab forward. Take my killing sword of the 10 directions. I only need one sword to kill you. It was a familiar line again. His sword seemed ordinary, but in fact, it contained a strange murderous aura. It made the hair of the person who was targeted stand on end, and he had a feeling that he had no way to escape and would definitely die. Not only was Chen Guang not surprised, but he was also overjoyed. He thought that he would have to wait a long time to meet someone with a martial emperor level martial art next time. He didn't expect that the person would take the initiative to come to him. Good. He laughed and went up to meet the opponent's long sword. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were fighting extremely quickly. Their figures intertwined, and their strength overflowed in all directions. Because the two of them were fighting so fast, the onlookers couldn't even see it clearly. They could only see two figures coming and going. Chen Guang felt that he might be at a disadvantage. His opponent was armed, but he was still barehanded. It wasn't that he didn't learn weapons and martial arts in the past year, but he didn't think much of them, and he didn't find a suitable weapon. The strength he could display with a weapon might not be as good as his bare hands. Old Man Bao hid in the distance, and he was frightened. He had a feeling that Chen Guang would be suppressed and killed by the martial emperor of the 10 directions in the next moment. The other people hiding in various parts of the true martial Saint Emperor city, who were peeping, had the same thought as Old Man Bao. However, there was nothing to be sad about. This kind of thing was very common in the true martial land. Everyone was used to seeing life and death. Although it was a pity, after all, it was just a change of city lord. Unexpectedly, in less than a few breaths, Chen Guang and the martial emperor of the 10 directions suddenly separated. Separated by more than 10 meters, the two of them looked at each other, but no one made a move. The winner had been decided. Who had won? The Holy Emperor's clothes were not torn. Could it be that the Holy Emperor had won? As soon as Old Man Bao thought of this, he immediately put this absurd idea out of his mind. How could it be so fast? Even if the Holy Emperor had won, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory. His opponent was the martial emperor of the 10 directions. While he was thinking about this, Chen Guang snapped his fingers in the distance, and the body of the martial emperor of the 10 directions cracked. A booklet flew straight out of the martial emperor's chest, and Chen Guang happened to catch it. Chen Guang put the booklet in his sleeve. Old Man Bao, stop reading. Go back and drink. Bao Bo was stunned. This. What this? I said 17 pieces, so it's 17 pieces. If you're still angry, stay here and burn his body. Bao Bo was confused for a moment, and then he fell into ecstasy. The hatred hidden in the depths of his heart gradually surged to his head, and his eyes turned red in an instant. Old Man Bao screamed, and then he turned around and rushed to the body of the martial emperor of the 10 directions. You beast! Give my daughter back! As for the lackeys who had followed the martial emperor of the 10 directions to cheer or work as porters, they immediately dispersed. Most of them turned around and ran away, but a small number of them knelt on the ground and shouted in unison, "Greetings, Holy Emperor." Chen Guang was too lazy to pay attention to these fence-sitters. It was useless to have these kind of lackeys. Without looking back, he waved his hand impatiently and said, "Get out of here." Since Christmas, the news of the tragic death of the martial emperor of the 10 directions in the true martial Holy Emperor city had spread like wildfire in this area. There were all kinds of rumors and versions. I was also at the scene of the battle that day. I followed Lord 10 directions to the Holy Emperor city to show the true martial Holy Emperor our strength. I didn't expect that this guy was a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years. Not only did he become a martial artist in a year, but he also easily slapped Lord 10 directions into several pieces. It's terrifying. The true martial Holy Emperor just slapped the martial emperor of the 10 directions into powder. The Holy Emperor frowned and stared. At the same time, the sky changed color, the moon moved, sand and stones flew, and the martial emperor of the 10 directions exploded and died on the spot. Terrifying, how terrifying. All kinds of rumors were spread to the 10 directions area. For a moment, the other 8 city lords and the martial disciples who stayed in the 10 directions city were all frightened. Some people who were on good terms with the martial emperor of the 10 directions fled overnight. There were also some martial disciples who thought they were quick-witted and killed the martial emperor of the 10 directions family members to join him. Chen Guang didn't accept any of these fence-sitters who cheated on his former master's family members. He even chopped the box full of women and children's heads into 8 pieces. However, he didn't reject other martial disciples who were sensible. If you want to join my sect, we can talk about it. Hand over your martial arts, hand over all the martial arts in the city you control, and I will spare your life. If you don't commit any more crimes from now on, I can guarantee your safety. In addition, Chen Guang also rejected the temptation of the 2 beautiful female city lords in the other 8 cities. I'm sorry, I don't like women. Oh yes, I don't like men either. After I had an epiphany, I wholeheartedly practiced martial arts. I won't stop until I become a martial emperor. At the same time, Chen Guang's actions also caused his reputation to swiftly spread throughout the 10 cities. What a righteous, benevolent, and wise holy emperor. More importantly, he was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Although the people of the true martial arts great land loved to fight, in the face of an absolute powerhouse that they couldn't defeat, there was only worship left in their minds. His good name spread far and wide, and it saved Chen Guang a lot of trouble. He didn't need to move. He just sat in his true martial holy emperor city and waited for people to send all kinds of martial arts to him. In the blink of an eye, another 3 years passed. In these 3 years, Chen Guang obtained 6 perfect martial emperor-level martial arts. They were all sent to him by the nearby city lords. However, these people didn't have the ability to understand them. These were high-end martial arts that were scattered outside. There were more than 100 other kinds of low-level martial arts. Chen Guang also learned all of them. However, his mind was too complicated, and the speed of his internal strength advancement didn't reach his expectations. Every day, besides eating and sleeping, he spent almost all his time on understanding martial arts. In particular, the 6 martial emperor-level martial arts consumed a lot of his energy. As a result, he couldn't advance from a martial artist to a chivalrous person in 3 years. If everything went smoothly like this, it would take about 2 or 3 years for him to become a chivalrous person and advance to the peak of muscle strength. However, on this day, 3 uninvited guests suddenly appeared in the city. Chapter 908. I've long heard of Saint Emperor Jinwu's fame. Now that I've seen you today, you really live up to your reputation. I've heard so much about you. An old woman in black with a cane stood in the hall of the city lord's mansion. She cupped her hands at Chen Guang with a hoarse voice. A thin middle-aged man with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes stood next to her. He cupped his sword and said to Chen Guang, "I'm Feng Bumian, commander of the Imperial Wind Army." "Nice to meet you, Saint Emperor Jinwu." The other person, who looked young and had glowing skin, but had a head full of white hair, simply cupped his hands as a greeting. Sitting on the city lord's seat, Chen Guang looked at the 3 of them with interest. At the same time, he was pondering if he should get them to stay. He had originally planned to be a bandit in the land of Jinwu, but he had unknowingly become a famous moral model. How embarrassing. These 3 people were all martial artists and were of the same level as him. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple for no reason. There was no need for them to come to his territory. They should know that there were no truly good people in this world. A good person would become a good man 20 years later. Everyone, if you have something to say, just say it. Since you are also martial artists, you must know that time is precious. Let's not beat around the bush. Chen Guang didn't want to waste time with these people, so he got straight to the point. The old woman with the cane raised her eyebrows. Saint Emperor Jinwu is a straightforward person. Snorting through his nose, Chen Guang replied, "Naturally. I've always pursued efficiency." Feng Bumian looked around, and he looked like he wanted to say something but was hesitant. Chen Guang understood. He turned to Old Bao and said, "Old Bao, tell the others to leave." Compared to the first year of the Saint Emperor's first year, although only 3 years had passed, Old Bao had aged a lot. It was as if he had killed 10 martial emperors, but the knot in his heart hadn't brought him back to his youth. Instead, because he had no more worries, he had aged a lot. Old Man Bao signaled the leader of the guards in the hall with his eyes, and the group of guards and civil officials all retreated. Seeing that Old Bao was about to leave, Chen Guang called out to him again, "Old Bao, don't run around. Find a place to sit. Look at how you're staggering. I told you not to come here." Although Chen Guang's mind was sealed in the world in a cup and he couldn't be easily affected by other people, he still couldn't help but feel sad when he saw Old Bao getting cut by time. The land of true martial wasn't like the sea of moments where one could retain their previous life's memories after reaching a certain level of strength. Once Old Man Bao died, no one knew where his soul would end up in the first layer. It would be extremely difficult to find him again. Although Feng Bumian still had some objections, seeing Chen Guang's insistence, he said helplessly, "Rumor has it that the Zhenwu Saint Emperor is obsessed with martial arts and is obsessed with collecting all the martial arts in the world. Is that true?" Chen Guang nodded and said without hesitation, "Of course, I am also interested in the martial arts that you three practice. Looking at your aura, even if it isn't a martial monarch level technique, it should be at least a martial king level technique, right?" The three's expressions changed slightly. Feng Bumian said awkwardly, "You sure know how to joke. All right, let's make it short." Chen Guang waved his hand once more. He was trying his best to appear arrogant. If he managed to infuriate the three of them, they might make a move against him. At that time, he would be able to rob them. The old woman with the cane stepped forward and said, "It's like this. A few days ago, we found a valley in the Fengya city, which is the city under the control of Commander Yufeng. What's so special about a valley?" Chen Guang was already complaining in his heart. It had appeared. A familiar plot. I was invited to form a party to clear a dungeon. An adventure to find treasures. I regret it so much. If I had known this would happen, I would have read more novels with more bizarre plots and depth. I shouldn't have been so obsessed with the fantasy novels. This is so embarrassing. Feng Bumian smiled. You can't say that. That valley used to be a dry river. It was not formed by the mountains but by the flow of the river. However, for some reason, the river changed its course, and the water stopped working. That place has been abandoned ever since. Chen Guang's interest was instantly piqued. The importance of a river in the land of Zhenwu was self-evident. It was even more valuable than the oil and minerals on Earth. In his 10 cities area, not to mention a river, there was not even a small ditch. The wells were dug hundreds of meters underground, and only then could they barely pour out enough water for daily use. He unconsciously leaned forward a little. Oh. That's interesting. Feng Bumian saw that his interest was piqued, and he was secretly delighted. His expression did not change. That's right. More importantly, I found a cave left behind by a sage in that valley. I believe it was a place where a martial lord lived. The old woman with the cane said, "That's right." The three of us went in to investigate, but we were stopped outside by the seal left by this senior. The elder with the child's face finally spoke. Therefore, we wish to invite the true martial saint emperor to go with us. With the 4 of us, we should be able to break through the seal. Feng Bumian continued, the true martial saint emperor may be young, but to be able to cultivate to this level within a year, you can be considered the most powerful person in this area. The martial lord senior may be powerful, but he has been around for a long time. The energy he left behind has mostly dissipated. With your help, breaking through the cave is almost certain. Chen Guang wanted to fall to the ground. He was tricked. He was completely tricked. I won't go. I can't go. I can't embarrass myself like this. But he still went. The reason was simple. Before coming here, the 3 of them had prepared many benefits for him. Aside from the martial arts that the 3 of them possessed, they had also started preparing for it half a year ago. They had prepared over 1,000 martial arts manuals that they could find in their respective cities and placed them before Chen Guang. Though Chen Guang could choose to kill the 3 of them and rob them of their secret manuals, he thought that there should be some perfect martial arts of the martial monarch level in the cave of the martial saint emperor. There were more than 400,000 martial arts of the martial monarch level in the land of Zhenwu. Except for the special ones like Tong Yan's young boy magical method, the other martial arts manuals were not treasured by many people. However, the world was too big, and it was not easy to find them. In the last 3 years, millions of people in the 10 cities had searched all over the mountains. Some merchants who liked to cater to Qin Guang went to places farther away to buy the martial arts manuals that Qin Guang needed at a high price. But the results were minimal. Most of the martial arts manuals they could find were of low quality. As such, he packed up his belongings and told the people in Jinwu's Saint Emperor City to keep a low profile. He was going on a long journey. Speaking of which, it was strange. Ever since Qin Guang entered the true martial Saint Emperor City and killed the 10 martial monarchs to become the overlord of the 10 cities, the weather in this region had been good for the next few years. Rain, which was rare to see in a few years, actually happened once a month. Some people said it was because the Saint Emperor was wise and lucky. Some people said it was the rumored auspicious sign. Wherever the auspicious sign was, the auspicious sign would be there. All in all, the weather in the 10 cities was favorable, and all the households had enough food to eat, and their bodies would be better. Even more martial arts disciples were born. The commerce in the 10 cities gradually developed, and the merchants naturally had work to do. Even Old Man Bao's nephew started to work as a merchant under Qin Guang's encouragement. Old Man Bao did not allow it at first, but Qin Guang told him, "If you don't help your own family, who will you help? You are my housekeeper, but I have nothing to give you. Don't think that you have this status now. When you die, what will you leave behind? You might as well help your family. Maybe in the future, when your nephew's business gets big, he can find you after you are reborn." Old Man Bao's nephew did not disappoint. He was known as a red-headed merchant with the special permission of the Saint Emperor, and he did well. Qin Guang had obtained 6 martial emperor-level techniques, and one of them was bought at a high price in a big city thousands of miles away. Qin Guang and the other 3 sat on the tall Fergana horses and galloped all the way. These horses were also special. They were at least twice as strong as the common horses on earth. Their speed was astonishing, and they could easily travel thousands of miles in a day. Not only would people be nourished by the yin and yang qi, but animals would also benefit. "Mr. Chen, the old man has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." As the horses galloped, the white-haired old man suddenly said. After a day, everyone became more familiar with each other. Qin Guang was always called Saint Emperor by the Saint Emperor, which made him feel uncomfortable. However, he could not make them call him Sir like his subordinates in the Saint Emperor City, so he just let them call him Mr. Qin. "Please speak." The old man knows that Mr. Qin is obsessed with martial arts, but a martial emperor-level expert once said that it is better to have less than more, and that it is better to be good at it. Although you have great ambitions, you should still act according to your capabilities. Qin Guang did not refute him. "Thank you for the reminder, senior. I will remember it." Seeing that he was feigning civility, the white-haired old man smiled and did not say anything else. Feng Bumian, on the other hand, laughed. "Since Mr. Qin can easily kill 10 martial emperors, you must be stronger than the 3 of us. Of course, you have your own opinion." "That's true. I spoke too much." The old man nodded and did not say anything else. 3 days later, the 4 arrived at their destination. This was indeed a good place with green grass. Although the river had dried up for who knew how many years, the soil in this valley was much more fertile than in other places. The vegetation was flourishing, and the sounds of birds and beasts could be faintly heard from the valley from time to time. There were many soldiers patrolling the valley entrance. They were Feng Bumian's men. Qin Guang teased, "Brother Feng, you are very careful." Feng Bumian smiled. This place used to be a place where the martial artists who ruled over this area often went into seclusion. After I became the leader of this area, I often came here to meditate. However, a few days ago, I only planned to build a stone house for myself. I didn't expect to find such a good place underground. Of course, I have to keep a close eye on it. The valley was very deep, and the road was rugged. It was difficult for the horses to travel. The four of them got off their horses and ran on foot. Their speed was not much slower than a 1,000-mile horse. After running for half a day, the four of them finally reached the deepest part of the valley. Chen Guang raised his head and looked around. He noticed that this was a lake in the shape of a bull's horn. The senior martial lord sure knew how to pick a good place. Everyone, the entrance to the cave is here. A human-made pit that was tens of meters deep appeared in front of the four of them. Looking down, they could vaguely see a stone door at the bottom of the pit. There were at least 100 corpses scattered around the pit. The blood was fresh, and it seemed that they had died not long ago. Seeing that Chen Guang was looking at the corpses, Feng Bumian said casually, "These are the people we sent to die when we tried to break the seal. Sorry for the embarrassment." Chapter 909. Ridicule. Chen Guang was momentarily dazed. Was this as simple as ridicule? You sent more than 100 people to their deaths, and in your eyes, it was ridicule. Chen Guang turned around to study the pile of bodies that were tossed out like garbage. Seeing that he was still bothered by this, Feng Bumian laughed. "I did not expect Brother Chen to have such a kind heart." Chen Guang pointed at one of the bodies and said, "Brother Feng, this young man's face." He did not finish his sentence, but the young man's appearance was 50 to 60% similar to Feng Bumian's. Feng Bumian waved his hand nonchalantly. "This is my 37th son. He has been training in the labor camp. I did not expect him to become anything special, but it is a pity that he died here." Chen Guang was shocked. When Feng Bumian said this, his tone was extremely calm, and it did not seem like he was faking it. He really did not care. The one who died was his son, but in his eyes, it was as if Chen Guang had seen a dead grasshopper on the street. Yes, that's right, it couldn't even compare to sparrows or other small animals. It couldn't even cause any waves. Was this the normal state of the people in this world? Chen Guang thought about it carefully, and it did seem to be the case. 4 years ago, when he was in Zhenwu Saint Emperor City, other than Old Bao, no one else seemed to care about their family. The reason why Old Bao was different was probably because he had lost 17 daughters in one day. The people of Zhenwu land were the same as the people of the Sea of Time. Their souls were probably incomplete, and they lacked something compared to the people of Earth. Alright, since we are here, should we go down now, or should we discuss this further? Chen Guang gathered his thoughts and waved his hand. The old woman walked at the very front and jumped into the deep hole. That's right. For this matter, we've already spent more or less half a year. It's time to settle things and see what this senior martial lord has left for us. Although she had a hunched back, her movements when she jumped down were very nimble. Feng Bumian and the elder followed closely behind. Chen Guang followed closely behind. The four of them walked to the front of the stone door. Chen Guang didn't say anything and waited for the other three to make their move. Feng Bumian turned back to look at Chen Guang. "Brother Chen, later, the four of us will attack the stone door together. Don't worry, just give it your all." The old woman with the walking stick also said, "Previously, the three of us worked together and expended a lot of effort to blast open the stone door. Now that Brother Chen is with us, it should be much easier. There is something strange about this stone door. With the strength of us martial artists, we are unable to break it. We can only break it open for a short period of time, and then it will quickly close. Then how do we get out?" Chen Guang was concerned about this problem. He did not want to be trapped inside. There is a mechanism inside that can be opened from the inside to the outside. Coming out should be easy. The child-faced old man explained. Chen Guang nodded. All right. Seeing that Chen Guang had no other opinions, Feng Bumian turned back to look at the stone door. His expression gradually turned serious. Then, shall we start now? Everyone, remember not to hold back. We must give it our all. If we can't blast it open, we will suffer the backlash. Chen Guang agreed quickly, but in his heart, he did not agree. I really don't dare to use my full strength. I don't want to scare you guys. However, his advantage was his physical body. In terms of internal energy, even though he was only 2 to 3 years away from becoming a martial artist, he might not be as good as the other 3 who had been in the martial world for many years. Actually, these people were quite pitiful. They had been stuck in the martial world for so many years and still could not improve. Everyone in the true martial land wanted to become stronger. However, every martial artist with potential wanted to become stronger. Who wouldn't want to become stronger? Who wouldn't want to climb higher and higher in order to experience the denser yin-yang qi in the higher realms? For example, if a martial artist forced himself to the limit of his body's endurance, even if he was just a slave in the 5th layer of the martial lord's territory, as long as he did not die, the speed of his cultivation would be much faster than staying in the 1st layer. Unfortunately, everyone's talent and bone structure were different. Naturally, the upper limit was also different. The cruel pyramid was not only reflected in the density of yin-yang qi. In the case of every native of Jinwu, the inherent difference in talent and bone structure determined everyone's upper limit. For people like Chen Guang, after he obtained internal energy, he could ride on the clouds and rise to the top. However, people like Feng Bumian and the 10 Directions martial emperors could only be stuck in the martial world, unable to improve. Martial artists who were willing to stay in the 1st level to become city masters or feudal lords and act as experts among the dwarves might have either lost their sharpness in their bones, or they had gone to a higher level and been oppressed by others to the point of living in a constant state of panic, only to return in a pitiful state. The truly talented martial artists had already left this place to go to a higher layer. Feng Bumian and the rest had their eyes on this martial lord's abode. They were probably hoping to find some kind of treasure that could improve their bone structure so that they could break through the martial world and become a martial artist in their lifetime. 3, 2, 1. After a short period of gathering energy, the 4 of them did not take out their weapons. Instead, they pushed their palms forward. 4 waves of energy rushed out of their palms and hit the stone door. Of the 4 waves of energy, the old man's was the thickest, followed by Feng Bumian's, the old woman's, and Chen Guang's looked the weakest. A loud sound came from the stone door. It was like a morning bell or evening drum. Then, it rumbled, and a small gap appeared. The door is open. Everyone, quick! Feng Bumian was the first to rush in. His movement was very fast. Chen Guang, who was the last, had just entered when the stone door slammed shut with a bang. The loud vibration caused the 4 to stumble. As far as the eye could see, this place was not some magnificent paradise. As far as the eye could see, it was just a deep stone room. The stone walls of the cave were inlaid with luminous stones that were either natural or man-made, illuminating the stone room in a hazy manner. There seemed to be the sound of water coming from afar, and there was a light breeze blowing on their faces. This meant that this seemingly enclosed abode had a way to communicate with the outside world. This abode should have been built under the sand continent. I wonder what kind of scary enemy the senior has offended. Even in our 1st layer, he has to be so careful. Feng Bumian explained as he walked deeper into the cave. The 4 groped their way forward for about 50 meters before Feng Bumian stopped. He pointed at the rippling surface of the water and said, "The thing that stopped the 3 of us here is this small underground lake." Chen Guang pretended to be naive. "Can't we just swim over there?" "No, that's what I did in the beginning, but I almost lost my life. There are traps hidden under this small lake. If we go into the water, they will come at us from the water." They are silent but powerful. That senior martial lord might not be the most powerful, but his skill in the art of traps is quite scary. If we fly through the air, there will be sharp blades and other traps. The three of us didn't know the depth of the lake, and we suffered a great loss here. Feng Bumian said with lingering fear. Chen Guang was confused. Then, it doesn't seem like I'll be of much help, does it? No, since that senior martial lord left this lake behind, he has to go through it himself, right? Therefore, he left behind some traps, and he seems to have prepared some tests for those who come after us. It's over there. Once the mechanism is activated, a Tin Woodman will jump out. It's invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire. With our strength, we can only barely defend ourselves against the Tin Woodman's attacks. However, we won't be able to destroy it. This time, with Brother Chen around, we'll have a chance of winning. In my opinion, if we can destroy this Tin Man, we might be able to find a way. Chen Guang nodded. I see. The four did not waste any more time. Feng Bumian stepped forward to activate the trap, and then he retreated like lightning. He yelled, "Everyone, be careful. It's coming out." Before he finished speaking, a tall black shadow appeared behind him. Feng Bumian heard the cold wind behind him and quickly leaped forward. The next moment, a loud boom came from where he was standing. A muscular figure about 10 feet tall stood where he was. His right foot stepped on the ground, and thick smoke billowed out from where his right foot touched the ground. Let's go. The white-haired, child-faced old man took out the iron whip from his waist and took the lead to pounce forward. The old woman with the cane also waved the iron staff in her hand and leaped forward. Feng Bumian pulled out his sword with a clang. Using the starry steps, he walked in circles on the ground to approach the Tin Man. Chen Guang originally planned to observe for a while longer before deciding what to do next, but the three were already in front of him. He did not want to take advantage of the situation, so he also took out his handy weapon from his back and ran forward. As he ran, he shook off the white cloth that was wrapped around his handy weapon, revealing the true appearance of the weapon. This caused Feng Bumian and the other two to almost trip. He really could not think of a suitable weapon for himself. Even though he had learned many martial arts, and there were weapons among them, he felt that they did not match his aura. Therefore, he came up with a random idea. First, this thing had to be heavy and heavy enough, or else he would not be able to fully utilize the advantage of his perfect physical body. Secondly, it had to not be easily damaged. This world was full of experts, and even though the art of forging was quite advanced, unless he found a legendary blacksmith, it would be difficult to forge a weapon that could accompany him all the way to Martial Monarch. Lastly, it had to be powerful, and when it hit someone, it had to be powerful. Therefore, I chose the mace. There was no need to explain how useful it was. It was simple and brutal, and it had full damage. Brother Chen, I really did not expect someone as handsome and elegant as you to be using such a powerful weapon. Feng Bumian could not help but tease as he hacked at the Tin Man's body. With a chuckle, Chen Guang dodged the tin humanoid slap and smashed his club against the latter's wrist. It can't be considered heroic, but it's fine as long as it's useful. The old woman with the cane also teased, "When I saw you carrying it on your back, I thought it was a broadsword or a mace. You gave me quite a fright." Brother Chen's weapon has a small handle and a large head, and it has sharp spikes on it. When you swing it, it's very powerful. The white-haired elder said as he lashed the mace on the Tin Man's body, causing sparks to fly. At the moment, even though the Tin Man was running around, due to its lack of agility, all his attacks missed. However, even though the attacks from the four looked scary, they were not effective. Even the spikes on Chen Guang's mace had been broken, but the Tin Man still looked very lively. Brother Feng, it seems like one more person won't make any difference. Chen Guang could not help but say. Chapter 9-10. Feng Bumian shook his head. That might not be the case. If the four of us work together and look out for each other, we should be able to find its weakness. Chen Guang did not say anything else and continued to focus on dealing with the Tin Man. Actually, with his power, if he unleashed his full power, he might be able to cause damage to this thing in a short period of time, but that was no longer a power that a fighter could use. Against these three, he had to hold back. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 3 to 4 hours had passed. Of the 4, 3 were exhausted, but Chen Guang pretended to be exhausted. Even though the Tin Man looked like he was in a bad shape, the group's attacks only made its armor shine brighter. At most, it only gained a few scratches. Are we really going to return empty-handed again? Feng Bumian's voice was filled with unwillingness. That might not be the case, Chen Guang said. What's wrong? Feng Bumian rolled on the ground like a donkey and barely dodged the Tin Woodman's giant foot. Chen Guang took the opportunity to hit the Tin Man's wrist. He had been hitting the same joint with the mace for so long, and it finally showed its effect. With a crack, the Tin Man's right forearm was broken. The other 3 were overjoyed, and they charged forward with renewed morale. The Tin Man had lost an arm, and it did not just lose the power of one arm. The balance of its entire body seemed to have lost its balance, and its combat ability was greatly reduced. Another hour passed, and the 4 of them were drenched in sweat and exhausted. The Tin Woodman's limbs were finally broken by Chen Guang's mace, and it fell to the ground, motionless. Feng Bumian walked forward and lifted the cover on the Tin Man's chest. He took out a piece of silk and laughed. It's done. This is the route. As long as we follow this route, we won't trigger any traps. Chen Guang slumped to the ground and wiped the sweat off his forehead. The mace in his hand had also become crooked. Its entire surface was red and hot from being struck and rubbed. As for those meticulously made spikes, they were long gone, leaving only a smooth stick. The white-haired old man and the old woman with the cane also revealed looks of joy, but strangely, the 2 of them didn't say anything. Brother Chen is a little exhausted. When Brother Chen recovers a little, we'll go in together. Feng Bumian shoved the silk into his pocket and walked toward Chen Guang. Although the other 2 were exhausted, they also got up and walked over. Seeing this, Chen Guang already knew what was going to happen next, but he just pretended to be a harmless little rabbit. Alright, I'm so tired. After saying that, he threw away the mace on purpose and stretched himself. Since you're tired, take a good rest. Feng Bumian continued to approach, and a smile bloomed on his face. Chen Guang nodded. That's right, it's time to rest. Suddenly, the sword in Feng Bumian's hand stabbed toward Chen Guang's chest like a venomous snake. The speed was no slower than when he was fighting the Tin Man. In fact, it seemed to be even faster. It was unclear whether he was holding back earlier or he was using some kind of technique to unleash his full potential. On the other side, the old woman with the cane also let out a scream. Her cane broke into 2, and inside it was a small sword. She held it and stabbed it toward Chen Guang's head. From her voice, she had been pretending to be an old woman, but she was at most a woman in her 30s or 40s. The white-haired old man lashed out with his long whip, and it whipped up a cloud of dust on the ground toward Chen Guang's lower body. Chen Guang pretended that he was no match for them. He rolled backward and barely dodged the attack from the 3. He curled up in the corner and yelled angrily, "What are you doing? Do you really not understand, or are you just pretending not to? The 3 of us have spent a lot of effort to figure out the mechanism of this cave, and we've barely escaped death several times. You want to take a share of the loot? You're too naive." Feng Bumian laughed coldly, and his face was full of evil. That's right. The three of us are good friends with Shifang. Killing you today will be revenge for him. The old woman with the cane said as she pulled at her face, and the makeup that she had put on fell off. She was indeed a beautiful woman. She must have heard that Chen Guang was afraid of women and was afraid that he would not agree to come, so she purposely pretended to be old. Chen Guang was shocked. You! How could you do this? This is too despicable. If not for me today, you wouldn't have been able to destroy the Tin Man with your skills. How could you burn the bridge after crossing it? Ha ha ha, I've long heard that you are kind and innocent. You really do live up to your reputation. Alright, just accept your death. Stop struggling and waste time. You are no match for the three of us. The old man with white hair and a child's face grinned and charged forward again. No matter how one looked at it, Chen Guang was no match for the three of them working together. But he was wrong. Before he finished, his body suddenly shook violently, and he flew backward. Blood splattered from his back. It was a stone that had pierced through his chest. You! The old man collapsed to the ground, his face pale. Chen Guang's stone had pierced through his body and shattered his internal organs. Chen Guang put away the frightened expression on his face and patted away the dirt on his body. Fine, I was going to spare your lives, but since you're asking for it, don't blame me for being merciless. How is that possible? Feng Bumian retreated and turned to run. Chen Guang's body flashed. He stomped on the ground with the tip of his foot and dashed forward with a speed that was twice as fast as before. In an instant, he was behind Feng Bumian. You must not have heard what I said to my servants. It is not too late for me to tell you now. I, the Zhenwu Saint Emperor, Chen Guang, am invincible among those 3 levels above me. The 3 of you are not even worthy of carrying my shoes. Go to hell. His hand rose and his fist fell. Feng Bumian turned around and swung his sword. Chen Guang did not pull back his fist that was aimed at Feng Bumian's chest. Instead, he reached out with his left hand and grabbed the sword. At the same time, his right fist landed squarely on Feng Bumian's chest. You don't know this, but I'm actually best at fighting with my hands. Feng Bumian fell backward. Blood spurted from his mouth like a fountain. 3 years ago, when Chen Guang had just broken through to the martial realm, he could already kill 10 martial emperors with ease. Now that 3 years had passed, his cultivation had improved a lot. Coupled with his perfect physical body, it was not too easy for him to deal with a martial emperor of the same level. However, Chen Guang felt a chill on his back. The lady who looked like she was frozen in shock had appeared behind him like a ghost. The silver dagger in her hand had pierced through Chen Guang's back and stabbed into his abdomen. Chen Guang's expression did not change as he turned around and punched. The lady dropped her dagger and retreated. Chen Guang raised his hand and activated his earth explosion ability. A green bean-sized ball appeared on his fingertip. Chen Guang used his finger flick ability and his dart skills. The ball flew straight at the lady's eye. She screamed in pain and retreated while holding her right eye. Blood spurted out from between her fingers. She begged, "Don't. I'm begging you. I'm sorry. You see me as a soft-hearted person. That's just a facade I put on for the people outside." Chen Guang slapped the lady's forehead, and she stopped breathing. In an instant, he had killed 3 people in a row. Then, he pulled out the beautiful woman's small sword from his back and muttered to himself with an expressionless face, "As the only player in the land of true martial, I'm not that kind to every NPC, okay?" Actually, he had already seen through their tricks from the very beginning. The wound that the lady's dagger left on his body looked scary, but it was not enough to kill him immediately. With the earth explosion ability activated, it would not take long for him to recover, so there was no need to worry about it. He took out the silk from Feng Bumian's pocket and memorized the route. Then, Chen Guang walked on the waves. This martial monarch's cave truly did not disappoint him. He actually found 3 martial emperor-level martial techniques inside, as well as many other martial techniques of various levels. Chen Guang collected them all. As for the so-called natural treasures in the abode, he was not interested. They were things that others cared about to improve their bone structure. For someone like him who had maxed out his bone structure, they were meaningless. However, Chen Guang carried them on his back. He had no use for them, but they were useful to his subordinates. If the 3 followed him into the abode, he would not want any of the things that they cared about. All he cared about was the martial arts. What was truly useful to him was still the underground lake outside. The river had dried up a long time ago. It was as if the lake was the only trace left behind by the vast river. The yin and yang energy in the lake was very dense. It was at least as dense as the 5th level of the martial lord's rule. It was about 50 times denser than on Earth. Following the directions on the silk, Chen Guang stepped on the lake and looked down. From the bottom, a stone platform appeared. Chen Guang sat cross-legged in the depression in front of the stone platform. The lower half of his body was submerged in the water. The natural treasures around him were treated as food. He began to meditate. Ever since he came to the Zhenwu University, he had spent most of his time studying different martial arts. This was the first time he was so focused on circulating the inner force in his body. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The yin and yang energy in the lake had been depleted by half. He felt a crisp sound inside his body. His power had officially broken through the limit of a martial artist. He had become a hero. The concentration of yin and yang energy in the lake was no different from the outside world. There was no point in staying here any longer. Chen Guang stood up and left. When he passed by the bodies of Feng Bumian and the other 2, Chen Guang felt sorry for them. Feng Bumian's subordinates saw that he was the only one who came out, so they surrounded him. One of the leaders stepped forward and asked, "Where is Commander Yufeng?" Waving his hand, Chen Guang casually replied, "He's dead." "The 3 of them are all dead." "What? How did they die? Weren't they fine the last few times? Speak. Did you plot against them?" The commander was enraged. Spreading his hands out, Chen Guang replied, "It can't be considered a sneak attack. I just killed the 3 of them without much effort." "Why? You guys want to take revenge for your master?" Chen Guang stretched his neck to count. There were about 100 of Feng Bumian's soldiers. He mumbled to himself, "Killing so many people at once is a disgrace to my good name, but I can't just stretch my neck and wait for others to kill me, right? The world will understand my difficulties in the future. So, should I do it now?" Unexpectedly, the angry soldier knelt on the ground the next second. "Greetings, Zhenwu Saint Emperor." Damn, they were all like this. Chen Guang waved his hand impatiently and walked away without turning back. He said coldly, "Send the order. Send the martial arts in Feng Bumian and the other 2's territories to Zhenwu Saint Emperor City, and I will spare your lives. Otherwise, I will hunt you down endlessly." Chapter 9-11. In less than a month after he returned to Zhenwu Saint Emperor City, the people in Feng Bumian and the other 2's territories presented their martial arts to him and swore their loyalty. Chen Guang did not need their loyalty. Their loyalty was not trustworthy. However, Chen Guang did not care. The other lords either wanted to collect the natural treasures produced in the area, or they wanted to take over the resources and trade with others. Their goal was to obtain natural treasures that could improve their bones, or they did it for women, or they were obsessed with power. If it was for the cultivation of martial arts, there was an inexhaustible supply of yin and yang qi in this world. Or if it was for the peerless secret manual. It was difficult to find a martial emperor's secret manual, but as long as one could become a martial disciple, they could become a lord of a city. At the very least, they could seek refuge with a martial artist. Martial Emperor's secret manual was not hard to find. Perhaps the virgin divine skill that had dragged Qin Guang into the pit was a little special. Therefore, the benefits of ruling a territory were not important to Qin Guang. All he needed was a variety of martial arts, the more the better. With his current strength, he had already surpassed the limit of the first level. He should have left for the second level immediately. Even if he stayed in the second level, he would not be able to meet any worthy opponents. In the entire true martial land, if a person became a hero but didn't go to the second layer, and instead stubbornly stayed in the first layer, he would be despised by the people. On the other hand, he would be hunted down by a mysterious organization. So on and so forth. After becoming a hero, one had to go to the third level. No one knew who had founded this mysterious organization, and no one knew the upper limit of its strength. However, it was rumored that there were once 5 tyrannical martial emperors in the 8th floor. They had acted in an unbridled and arrogant manner. They had wantonly abused the weak. What was even more shameful was that these martial emperors had joined forces. They had proclaimed that they were unafraid of anyone in the true martial land. However, in the end, only one martial emperor from the mysterious organization came to fight these 5 heartless martial emperors alone. That battle changed the color of the 8th level. The mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the rivers stopped flowing. In the end, the 5 martial emperors died on the spot, and the mysterious martial emperor left. Even now, the wreckage of the battlefield left behind by that tragic battle had not been erased, and a large city had even been rebuilt on the ruins. The 6 martial emperors frantically executed their methods. Not only did they make the yin and yang qi in that place thicker, they also left behind many traces of the profound meaning of martial arts. For example, the stones used to build the city walls might have once dripped with the blood of a martial emperor. The puddles and lakes outside the city might have been formed when a martial emperor was knocked to the ground. If martial artists stayed near the big city, their cultivation progress would be faster, and they would have the possibility of obtaining the treasures left behind by the predecessors at any time. That city was called One Emperor City, and it was one of the holy lands of the true martial continent's 8th layer. From this, one could see how powerful the mysterious organization was. However, ever since Qin Guang became a vigilante, he had not fought, so he did not break the rules of the true martial continent. No matter how powerful the mysterious organization was, no one knew that he was a vigilante other than himself, and they would not come looking for trouble with him. However, he was not in a hurry to leave. As the saying goes, sharpening one's axe will not delay the work of cutting firewood. For the next 5 years, he stayed quietly in Saint Emperor City. He focused on studying the various martial arts that he had obtained from the Martial Lord's Cave and the territories of Feng Bumian and the other 2. At the same time, he slowly increased his power. Feng Bumian and the other 2 invited him to explore the cave. Although they had planned to kill him, they were worried that Qin Guang was too strong for them to fight. If Qin Guang had displayed a stronger inner strength than the white-haired old man, they might not have attacked him. Therefore, Qin Guang found a total of 14 martial emperor-level techniques from the pile of books left behind by the 3 of them. Also, because Qin Guang did not have any goals, and he never ordered people to plunder the resources in his territory, the 33 cities that had joined him developed very quickly. Agriculture and commerce were flourishing, and people lived in peace and contentment. However, he had no desires. The merchants who were grateful for his kindness could only collect all kinds of high-end martial arts books from afar. In 5 years, they had collected 10 martial emperor-level techniques and a few others. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed since he came to the true martial continent. In these 10 years, he had truly mastered a total of 35 martial emperor-level martial arts and hundreds of others of various ranks. As for his power, it did not improve much. He was still at the beginning of the martial hero level, which was equivalent to the peak of modern martial arts like muscle strength. However, from the martial hero level to the martial hero level, this seemed simple, but Chen Guang knew that it was a big threshold. In the land of the true martial arts, cultivating from the level of a swordsman to the level of a hero was equivalent to crossing the threshold of the muscle strength in the real world. This was a long and arduous process. In fact, sometimes Chen Guang felt sorry for the people of the true martial continent. They had such abundant yin and yang qi, and the power of their moves was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than in the real world. However, it was so difficult for them to improve their realm. In the real world, there was no need to talk about geniuses like Wen. However, geniuses who were one level lower, such as Axayan Qin and Wu Miaowan, had reached the peak of bone strength before the age of 20. In the land of true martial arts, these geniuses were equivalent to revered martial artists. For the natives of this world, unless the upper-class residents were born with high-level inner strength, even if they were geniuses, they would need at least tens or even hundreds of years to climb their way to the rank of a martial honor after cultivating from the bottom. The Transcendent's Holy Grail hadn't given him any explanation for this. However, Chen Guang personally felt that it might be because the laws of the true martial world weren't as complete as the real world. As a result, it was extremely difficult for martial practitioners to comprehend the realm of the martial Tao. It was just like how even a talented youth wouldn't be able to learn calculus at the age of 10 if he followed the rules and attended elementary school like an ordinary person. Take Chen Guang for example. He had been here for a whole 10 years. If he could improve at the same speed as in the real world, he would have reached the peak of bone strength by now, even if he did not meditate. His realm would not be lower than Axayan Qin's. In the past 10 years, Chen Guang had lived a comfortable life in the true martial Holy Emperor city. After killing Feng Bumian and the other two, although he did not provoke others, the title of the strongest martial artist still spread like wildfire in the first level. Under his rule, the 33 cities became more prosperous and the people lived in peace. If it was not for the fact that he had to leave this world, Chen Guang would not have wanted to leave. However, all good things must come to an end in this world. Although people kept sending him all kinds of martial arts, the only thing he really needed was the void scripture of Taishian, which he had spent 5 years trying to understand. On this day, he put the void scripture of Taishian into his bag, packed a few things, and planned to leave. "Sir, do you have to leave? Although I knew this day would come sooner or later, I thought you would have to attend my funeral before leaving." Old Bao looked much older than before. It was very strenuous for him to speak with trembling hands. Chen Guang looked at him helplessly. These years, Old Bao had gotten a lot of treasures to nourish his body. However, his talent was limited, and it came too late. In the end, there was nothing he could do. Chen Guang patted him on the shoulder with his broken hand. It is said that the most difficult thing in life is parting. The true martial Holy Land is vast and boundless. After you die, I don't know when and where I will see you in the future. Instead of being sad for no reason, it is better to be carefree and leave happily. As a child of the Jianghu, it is difficult to meet and it is difficult to say goodbye. Everyone has their own path. Instead of being sad for no reason, it is better to move forward freely. In the long road of life, if you can remember some good friends, it is a blessing. But if it is too long and you forget each other, there is no need to care. This is also fate that once existed. Actually, Chen Guang felt that he had a way to find old Bao Bo again. It wasn't difficult. If he died once, he would have to start all over again. He would still be in the true martial sacred emperor city. Sir, I can only live for about half a year. If you leave, our holy emperor's city will be in danger. I am not doing this for myself. When I die, there is no need to care about the flood behind me. But now that the holy emperor's city has such power, you are letting it go so easily. Old Bao cried. Chen Guang did not stay any longer. He walked out of the city lord's mansion. Old Bao, in the true martial Holy Land, the so-called power is just an illusion. Only strength can last forever. In fact, I have already become a hero. I should have taken a step forward and reached a higher realm. Instead of being content with a corner, of course, it is much more interesting to roam the world. You do not need to worry about the prosperity of the Holy Emperor's city or even the 33 cities. Everyone has their own destiny. Anyway, won't you still be a hero after 20 years? What? Sir, you are already a hero. Old Bao did not know where he got the strength from, but he chased after him. When the people outside the city lord's mansion saw that Chen Guang was leaving, they also followed. Chen Guang's steps became faster and faster. His inner strength was bursting. He walked with an imposing manner, confident and heroic. Gradually, more and more people came out of the city. After the renovation, the spacious street was densely packed with people. They jogged all the way to follow Chen Guang. Chen Guang walked out of the city gate and looked back. In the huge true martial Holy Emperor city, hundreds of thousands of people were already kneeling along the 10 miles of street. Their Holy Emperor was going to pursue a higher martial path. Although everyone knew that this day would come sooner or later, when it really came, they could not help but feel emotional. In these 10 years, Chen Guang had brought them a very good life. However, everyone knew that ever since the Saint Emperor had made his debut, he had fought 3 times to establish himself as the strongest martial artist of the first layer. His peerless talent should not have been buried. He should have been a mighty eagle soaring through the sky. Even if the Holy Emperor's city was the most majestic city in the first layer, and the 33 cities were also the most majestic country in the first layer, they were not worthy of his talent. Everyone. There is no need to feel emotional. Sooner or later, the name of Chen Guang, will shine like the sky. At that time, if any of you can keep up with my footsteps, sooner or later, we will meet again. Although the true martial Holy Emperor's city is located in the lowest layer of the true martial land, and most of the people who grew up here are muggles without talent, as the saying goes, the sky is as high as your heart is high. Now, I will tell you that I called myself the true martial Holy Emperor because I believed that I would become a real martial emperor sooner or later. Therefore, since you are my people, the foundation of my foothold on this land, I hope that you will not disgrace my name. In the future, I hope that when the people of the true martial Holy Emperor's city reach the 2nd and 3rd layer, or even the 8th and 9th layer, you must remember that you used to be my people. After saying that, he flew up and whistled. The white jade iron hoof horse, which had followed Chen Guang for 3 years, galloped out of the dense forest outside the city. It was bought by old Bao's nephew from the far west. He landed on the back of the horse and flew away like lightning. Chapter 9:12. At the same time, Chen Guang heard the notification of the heavenly Holy Grail. The Redeemer changed history and changed the world. Revival mode changed. Chen Guang observed the new resurrection method in his heart. He wouldn't go back in time after his resurrection, but he would reconstruct his body at a random location. However, Chen Guang didn't know if he should be happy or worried. He was happy that the 10 years he spent in the Saint Emperor's city were not wasted. If he revived in the future, he wouldn't have to embarrass himself again. He was worried that after old Bao and the others died, it would be extremely difficult to find them again. But he didn't worry for long. After staying in this world for so many years, he had seen too many deaths. Death was like a lamp going out. Adding oil to the fire, he was reborn again. He was much more carefree. In short, in this world, life and death stood out. If you're not happy, fight. Chen Guang slapped the butt of the white jade iron hoof horse again. Hiya! From then on, the true martial saint Emperor Chen Guang officially started his journey and announced his return. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, more than 100,000 years had passed. In these hundreds of thousands of years, the name of the true martial sacred emperor had risen from being unheard of to being famous. As a genius, he charged into the 5th level of the martial saint realm when he just entered the chivalrous realm. When he first entered the 5th level, because he couldn't take it anymore, he killed a 2nd generation. He offended the 2nd generation's martial lord father and was hunted down by the martial lord. Then, with the chivalrous realm, he fought against 100 people 2 levels above him. There were even martial lords, several chivalrous heroes, and dozens of chivalrous heroes. But the final result was a fierce battle that lasted for 3 days. Everyone, including martial lords, died. According to the memories of the onlookers, the true martial saint Emperor Chen Guang only had the chivalrous inner strength. However, he had a strange power. When he waved his mace, anyone who touched it would die and anyone who blocked it would be injured. Even chivalrous heroes who were in a higher realm than him were the same. Only martial lords could barely block his attacks. This was still not the most terrifying part. It was as if he had an undying body. Even if the martial lord's sharp blade pierced through his chest and abdomen, he could still fight back while spraying blood, and even hit the martial lord's head with his club. Furthermore, even though he only had a chivalrous cultivation base, he was simply a freak. He had all kinds of tricks up his sleeves. Various kinds of inner strength and killing moves were used by his hands like butterflies flying through flowers. He used a clumsy mace as exquisitely as an embroidery needle, but sometimes it was as bold and unrestrained as a battering ram. After that battle, the true martial saint emperor's name shook the 5th level. After that, he was chased again. It was the master of the martial lord, a martial saint who ruled over a country. However, he was not afraid, nor did he lower his head. He straightforwardly self-destructed in the air, turning into countless pieces of flesh and blood that scattered into the river of forgetfulness that was extremely dense with yin and yang energy. Everyone thought he was dead. But a year later, he made a comeback. He used the chivalrous inner strength to challenge a venerable martial lord. In the end, the venerable martial lord was defeated. After that, he was chased by a few venerable martial lord's best friends. He escaped again and hid his name for 10 years. This time, he killed 7 venerable martial lords as a martial lord. Since then, he became the first martial lord to rule a country in the 5th level. He even revealed his name and called himself the true martial saint emperor. His arrogance was as famous as his strength in the 5th floor. 20 years later, as a venerable martial lord, he stepped into the 7th level, which was ruled by martial kings. He stole treasures from the Chilean Ghost King Mountain and killed the 3 kings of the Ghost region. He fought at the Huia Peak and defeated the 5 kings of the Central Plains. At the Heavenly Eye Lake, he killed 2 martial monarchs who had sneaked into the 7th level. With the martial king realm, he fought with a mysterious martial monarch who suspected his real strength for 7 days and 7 nights. In the end, the martial monarch was sure that he only had the martial king realm's inner strength. He fled with severe injuries and wrote an apology letter to the world. After that, the true martial saint emperor went to the 8th level and killed 8 martial monarchs alone. He didn't tell the world the reason until he killed the last one. He was avenging the martial monarch who was betrayed and killed 500 years ago. 50 years later, when he stepped into the 9th level as a martial monarch, none of the martial monarchs dared to look down on him. The 9 great martial emperors even held a discussion that very night and took the initiative to cede a portion of the land. They handed over a portion of the 9th layer of land that was worth an inch of gold to him, becoming the first 10th sovereign region in 1,000 years. Even though he was polite to the 9 martial monarchs, he named his 10th sovereign realm the True Martial Saint Emperor realm. At the beginning, when he was on the first level, people thought the title True Martial Saint Emperor was just his ambition and thought it was an arrogant joke. When he was on the 5th level, people thought the title True Martial Saint Emperor was arrogant and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. When he built the True Martial Saint Emperor realm on the 9th level, no one dared to laugh at him anymore. The people of the world finally understood that this number 1 genius, who had risen to prominence like a god, was really aiming for the martial saint realm that no one had ever touched. He put the saint realm before the emperor realm. He wanted to become a saint from the very beginning. Since then, the true martial saint emperor didn't become a martial monarch, but he wasn't weaker than a martial monarch. He even created a new level by force with his peerless heroism. People called him the Quasi-Emperor. 500 years after the Quasi-Emperor was born, he finally became a real martial monarch. According to the insiders, he almost didn't meditate in seclusion during these 500 years. Instead, he studied the martial arts in the world crazily without rest. Some people even calculated that he had learned at least 10,000 different martial monarch level martial arts. In the lower levels of the true martial continent, a method called the Holy Emperor era gradually spread. This was because more and more experts from the first layer of the true martial Holy Emperor city rose to power. They were constantly breaking through to higher realms. Although these people came from the lower levels, they were all amazing talents. They were all domineering and unyielding. They were like a torrent that swept from the first level to the 9th level of the true martial Saint Emperor realm, spreading the glory of the true martial Saint Emperor to every inch of the true martial great land. In the 937th year of the Sage Emperor era, the Beast Tide appeared once every 10,000 years and the invincible giant devouring beast was born. The mysterious organization appeared and led the heroes of the world to fight, but in the end, they were almost defeated. At the last moment, the true martial Saint Emperor appeared and fought the invincible giant devouring beast alone. He killed it completely and jokingly called it a naughty earthworm. In the vast true martial land, no one dared to look down on his good name. The Sage Emperor era was recognized by the remaining 7 martial monarchs who survived the Beast Tide. They respected the true martial Saint Emperor as the strongest expert in 1,000,000 years. Since then, the true martial Saint Emperor cultivated at the peak of the mountain and did not care about the world. He only held a concert every 4 years to play a musical instrument that he had invented called the piano. Of course, sometimes he would do some other activities, such as carving. His interest in martial arts was also relatively unconventional. Although he learned everything, he showed that he was particularly fond of darts and concealed weapons. Every 4 years, he would hold a darts competition at the foot of the highest peak. Anyone who could perform to his satisfaction in the darts competition would be rewarded handsomely. Of course, sometimes he was not so serious and liked to play with mechanisms. For example, he once tried to invent something called a car and held a racing competition. He claimed to be an experienced driver, but in the end, the car would mysteriously crash every time. He was jokingly called the Crash Emperor. He also tried to create something called an airplane that could glide. He even wanted to open a pilot academy. In the end, the airplane would crash every time just like a racing competition. Thus, he was given another title, Crash Emperor. However, what really caught the attention of the people of the true martial land were his other 2 titles. The Immortal Monarch and the Child God Emperor. He seemed to be favored by the heavens. At least every 2,000 years, he would regain his youth. He even became the first peerless martial monarch in 1,000,000 years to live past 9,000 years. He lived even longer than the Eternal Emperor who specialized in health. Another thing was that he really didn't lust after women. In his long life of more than 100,000 years, even the most beautiful woman in the world could not move his heart. Almost everyone believed that he had eternal life. However, more people believed that he would become the first person in the history of the true martial land to surpass the martial monarch realm and become a martial saint. In the autumn of the 37,861 year of the Sage Emperor era, a piece of news that could shake the entire world arrived. The Sage Emperor was about to reach the peak. In a short period of time, countless experts who were qualified to enter the 9th floor flocked there. Billions of people gathered at the foot of the peak. Everyone looked up at the figure that was not very tall but was incomparably imposing. He walked up the endless stairway of despair step by step. He went further and higher, and he was getting closer and closer to the peak. The terrifying waterfall of rain pounded on his shoulders. Any drop of water could easily shatter a martial monarch's body. However, he still walked forward with his head held high and his expression unchanged. The moment he set foot on the peak of the mountain, the never-ending waterfall rain suddenly stopped. The vast and boundless clouds in the sky parted as if someone had split them in half. The 7-colored rays of light illuminated the entire land of Jinwu. He turned around, but there was only an extremely serene smile on his face. He casually waved his hand and said, "Everyone, I'm leaving." After he finished speaking, his entire body gradually floated into the sky. It was as if he was wrapped in the rainbow-colored light as he soared into the sky. His figure disappeared without a trace. That's right, he had transcended and become a sage. Perhaps it could be said that when he became a sage, his strength also exceeded the limits of this world. He could no longer be contained by this world, so he broke through the void and left. In short, he had left a deep mark in the history of the true martial land. However, only Chen Guang himself knew that the so-called breaking through the void was a lie. He had merely completed the task of the world within a cup and was sucked away by the space-time tunnel. This matter was quite depressing. Even if he had become a martial monarch, he would not have been able to break through the plane barrier of the true martial land, even if the barrier was created by the heavenly Holy Grail. This proved another situation. The novels that said that one could break through the void upon reaching the pinnacle of martial arts were also lies. Whether it was in the true martial land or in the real world, the plane barrier was extremely sturdy. It was simply a pipe dream to touch it by relying on martial arts and without the ability to control divine power. Forget it, let's not think about these useless things. Chen Guang did not stay in Cloud City for long. He quickly left the world within a cup. He slowly opened his eyes and felt the crazy numbness on his right wrist. His right hand, which had been lost for hundreds of thousands of years, was rapidly regrowing like a sprout under the dumbfounded gazes of Wenwen, Ouyang Tianqing and the others. He had not stopped laughing. The inner strength in his body was surging crazily from the void. It was the same laughter, but when it reached everyone's ears, it was filled with a different kind of charm. He was still him. However, he was not quite the same. Chen Guang stared straight at Ouyang Tianqing. The smile on his face became even wider. Damn it, I trained for hundreds of thousands of years just to teach you a lesson. Chapter 9:13. How did he feel at the moment? Using an anti-aircraft cannon to kill a mosquito was like using a dragon-slaying saber to kill a chicken. Thinking of the more than 100,000 years he had spent in the land of true martial arts, he couldn't bear to recall the past. He had often mocked himself for being a one-in-a-million dragon that couldn't enter the cave. If he had known that his words would come true, he wouldn't have cursed himself like this. Now, the one-in-a-million dragon couldn't describe the coolness of the old man anymore. He had upgraded to a living dinosaur that was 130,000 years old. If the Holy Grail didn't have its own spiritual seal, Chen Guang believed that he would have been driven crazy in the land of true martial arts. He had almost lost control of himself many times and wanted to do something even if he had to die for nothing. However, as soon as the thought occurred to him, the inner force of the young boy magic in his dantian became restless. Even though he used hundreds of thousands of other kinds of inner forces of the same state to suppress it, it didn't work. This made him realize more deeply the power of the unfortunate young boy magic of the martial emperor. It was invincible, and its poison was so strong that it couldn't be stopped. Of course, Chen Guang would never know that he had actually been tricked by the deer fruit. The normal young boy magic didn't have such power, but the effect was different after the deer fruit, who was in the divine emperor realm, added some personal power to it. At this moment, Enchanting, who had been weeping bitterly in front of him, stopped crying. Instead, she looked at Chen Guang's palm that was very close to her with her almond-shaped eyes and an incredulous expression. She opened her mouth wider and wider, and she almost couldn't help but scream. However, she recalled that Chen Guang had boasted to her, wondering if the sacred body of elements was really so powerful. How could it be so unreasonable? The regrowth of a broken limb was like the tail of a gecko. No, it was like the bamboo shoots after the rain. It was like cheating. But what made her feel even more terrified was the change in Chen Guang's aura. Other people who were further away might not be able to sense it clearly, but Enchanting, who was right in front of her, could clearly sense that there was a terrifying inner force that was as tyrannical as a prehistoric force rapidly growing from nothing in Chen Guang's abdomen. The slightest contact with this aura would cause one's mind to fall into a trance. Even people who were so familiar with each other would still have the urge to kneel on the ground. Enchanting didn't understand what was going on. She and Wu Miaowan were probably the people in the world who understood the progress of his cultivation the most. After all, Enchanting had been by his side throughout the entire process of his innate bone structure and inner force growing from nothing to something. Before he came here, he was only at the beginner level of muscle strength. Even yesterday, he was only at muscle strength. Although his terrifying strength allowed him to pose a threat to martial artists at the peak of bone strength like Wu Miaowan and himself, it could not hide the fact that his inner force was only at the tendon strength level. What was going on? The others were further away, so they didn't feel it as strongly as Enchanting. However, the fact that his palm was growing rapidly in front of everyone's eyes was shocking enough. As the martial artist with the highest realm among them, Wen could clearly sense the change of inner force in Chen Guang's body. Her eyes widened as she thought she was dreaming. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. What's going on? Enchanting put away the proud expression on his face and snapped back to reality. He looked at Chen Guang with a solemn expression. Chen Guang was about to say something to make himself look more imposing. Oh. He forgot something. When he was drinking water to act cool, he accidentally spat mud into his mouth. He didn't even have time to spit it out. Then, he was busy laughing and acting cool, so his mouth was still covered in mud. Tui. After spitting a few mouthfuls, his mouth felt better. After that, Chen Guang covered the sky-piercing Holy Grail with his newly grown right hand and hung the cup by his waist before wiping the mud off the corner of his lips. Enchanting, take your own life. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you'll die a horrible death. Even if there were 10 or 100 of you, you wouldn't be a match for me. He wasn't joking. Although the yin and yang qi in the real world was much weaker compared to the land of Jinwu, causing Chen Guang to only be able to unleash 1,000th of the power he had in the world in the cup, he had surpassed the great scholar realm. coupled with the martial sage divine technique that he had created after combining more than 400,000 martial emperors' unique skills and the painting scroll from the land of Jinwu, as well as the innate stage earth explosion, it was too easy to kill him. Nonsense. Dream on. Ouyang Tianqing couldn't accept this cruel reality. You'll know soon enough whether I'm dreaming or not. Chen Guang patted Axayan Qin's shoulder and put his hands in his pockets. He started to walk towards Ouyang Tianqing, circulating his internal energy as he walked. At the same time, Chen Guang complained to Lu Minghua in his heart, "This is too illogical. When I read novels in the past, I didn't think that breaking through the void was difficult. Why is it impossible for me?" Impatiently, Lu Minghua spat at him. "Save it. Do you know how the heavenly Holy Grail creates the plane space? To create a plane, which is your world in the cup, the first thing you have to create is the barrier of the world in the cup. The barrier is the source of the entire plane. Just like your heavenly Holy Grail, if it doesn't have a wall, how are you going to store water? In order to resist the invasion of space-time turbulence, the cup world has to become a plane of its own. Even your most inferior spirit heavenly cup's barrier contains almost the complete laws of the plane. You want to break through the barrier with your mediocre skills. In other words, shatter the void. Dream on." Chen Guang didn't agree. "What do you mean mediocre skills? Show some respect to the true martial holy emperor. The old man is an old monster who has lived for hundreds of thousands of years." "Lu Minghua, I really don't want to hurt you, but when I was in the endless divine realm, I would occasionally sleep in for more than hundreds of thousands of years. Also, your earth-paced exploder race innate talent can barely be considered as high level, but your martial sage inner strength is really not enough in the endless realm of the gods. Let's not talk about other things. Just in the real universe, just within the range of 15 billion light-years that you humans can detect, there are so many energy behemoths that are beyond your imagination. You don't understand at all. These behemoths can smash your solar system when they stretch. The star fragments that they blow out when they sneeze can blow a hole in your Milky Way. The universe that you can't see beyond 15 billion light-years is completely beyond your understanding. But even such a monster is unable to break through the barrier of your universe. Do you really think you can do it?" "Humph." Chen Guang didn't refute Lu Minghua's words. When the real world and the real world merged twice, and when he upgraded from heavenly Holy Grail to one-line sky, his consciousness had followed the power of the Holy Grail to an infinitely far place in the universe. In these 3 long yet short journeys, he saw and heard too many things, and the amount of information he received was too huge. Even until now, his brain still hadn't been able to digest all the information. But now that Lu Minghua mentioned it, he gradually recalled it. In a sense, what Lu Minghua said was completely true. The universe that was 15 billion light-years away did indeed exist. He had indeed seen those behemoths that Lu Minghua mentioned before. But at that time, he didn't pay too much attention and only treated these energy behemoths as a galaxy. Now it seemed that he was wrong. But the truly powerful beings in the universe weren't just these energy behemoths. Chen Guang clearly remembered that he had a glimpse of a huge celestial body. Its size was even comparable to the solar system. Now that he thought about it, the size of this thing had already surpassed the largest star. It was simply illogical. But it was clearly a living behemoth. Just the thought of such a powerful existence that almost exceeded the limits of his thinking made him have goosebumps all over his body. Just in terms of energy reserves, even the true martial saint emperor in his best state in the world in the cup was still not a match for those behemoths. Forget it, don't bother about things that are too far away. Let's solve the small problem in front of us first. He thought to himself that after seeing the scenery at the peak and looking at the ants in front of him, he really couldn't muster up the slightest bit of fighting spirit. Just at this moment, Long Dingtian's voice came from behind him. Chen Guang, don't tell me you've been scared silly. As Long Dingtian spoke, he casually extended his hand from behind and planned to strike Chen Guang's head with a palm. Since he was able to shatter all of Chen Guang's bones with a palm strike previously, he naturally felt that he could do the same now. But if he was careless this time and killed him, it wouldn't be a big deal. Anyway, his objective had been achieved. Once Mr. Ing killed Wen, the Shadow Alliance martial artists would be free to roam the world. There was no longer any meaning for Chen Guang to be a hostage. Unexpectedly, Chen Guang suddenly turned around and looked at him. Chief Long, you really deceived me. Long Dingtian chuckled as his palm got closer. There's nothing too deceitful in war. You can only blame yourself for being too stupid and naive. I don't know how your injuries recovered so quickly, but it doesn't matter. I will shatter your bones again. This time, it's your skull. Chen Guang's expression didn't change. I said it before. No matter who your backer is, all of you have to die. But now, our backer, Mr. Ing, is about to kill your sect patriarch Wen. As Long Dingtian spoke, he had already raised his palm. His fingers were getting closer and closer to Chen Guang's head. At this moment, Ouyang Tianqing didn't continue to pursue Wen or Wu Miaowan and Taoist Song Song. In his eyes, everyone here was already a dead man. It didn't matter if he was anxious or not. What made him hesitate was the indistinct uneasy feeling that was coming from Chen Guang's body. Ouyang Tianqing didn't know where this feeling came from. He felt that it was inexplicable and without any reason, but he couldn't get rid of it. In the next instant, he knew where his worries came from. Chapter 9:14. Chen Guang suddenly moved. No, he didn't seem to move again. It was unknown if his movement was too fast and he didn't see it clearly, or if he was just casually circulating his inner force. In any case, Long Dingtian flew out without any warning. As he flew backwards in mid-air, his body started to crumble and disintegrate. Golden Flower Granny let out a shrill scream. Old Long. Golden Flower Granny then charged towards Chen Guang with her teeth bared, but it was useless. Chen Guang still didn't move and just looked at her indifferently. Perhaps, he blinked his eyes, and this Golden Flower Granny also flew backwards, ending up the same as Long Dingtian. I said it before, all of you have to die. Chen Guang's back was still facing Ouyang Tianqing, but his voice seemed to be speaking to everyone present. As he finished speaking, an indescribably terrifying inner force erupted from his body. Ouyang Tianqing's pupils contracted. He could clearly see a formless force emerging from Chen Guang's body. He seemed to have turned into a whirlpool that sucked all the air in the area dry. In a trance, Ouyang Tianqing felt that the Chen Guang in his eyes was no longer the useless chief of Guangding General Bureau that he could manipulate. He was no longer a person, but a world of his own. Towering, majestic, and boundlessly powerful, it made people feel as if they were as insignificant as ants. What exactly happened? This thought didn't only exist in Ouyang Tianqing's heart. Even Wen, who understood Chen Guang the most, was at a loss. Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan were also at a loss. Daoist Song Song and Panda, who stayed behind to sacrifice their lives for the sake of the Guangding General Bureau, were also in disbelief. As for Poison Sect's Demon Sovereign Jiu, Dark Sect's Evil Monarch Yu, and Six Sword Sect's Zhuge Ling, these evil sect's martial artists felt a chill from the depths of their souls. What Chen Guang released wasn't killing intent, but it was more than killing intent. He was clearly a goshawk flying in the clouds, looking down at the countless tiny prey on the ground. Finally, Chen Guang slowly raised his right hand. His newly grown right hand clenched into a fist. The tip of his fist was dull, but it seemed to emit an invisible light. A muffled buzzing sound that sounded like muffled thunder seemed to resound in every corner of the world. The morning sky in the mountains of Ninghai province gradually became dim and gloomy as he raised his right hand higher and higher. But this was not what Ouyang Tianqing feared the most. He realized that the power of the simplified endless reincarnation will formation that he had secretly set up near the mountain was being sucked dry by Qin Guang. What happened just now? Why did he seem like a completely different person after laughing like a lunatic for no reason? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength all along? Was this his true strength? He's been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, waiting for the day I walk into his trap. Once this thought arose in Ouyang Tianqing's mind, it became more and more intense and couldn't be erased. It even caused him to feel a chill in his bones. This fellow's acting was too good and too realistic. He had been careful enough and had even asked Long Dingtian to test his strength more than once. He only revealed his true self after confirming that there was no problem. But he had actually been hiding until now. How forbearing, how despicable, how black-bellied. No wonder he was able to force the world-shattering Saint clan into a corner in his previous life. As expected, none of the experts that stood at the pinnacle of the world were easy to deal with. The terrifying Grand Sorcerer Right Qin. Everyone, attack. Kill him. Without any other choice, Ouyang Tianqing finally couldn't hold back anymore. After a loud shout, he took the lead and soared into the sky, pouncing towards Qin Guang. On the other side, Demon Sovereign Zhou, Evil Monarch Yu, Zhuge Ghost Shadow, Zhou He, and the other evil faction experts charged forward together. The evil faction martial artists that were hiding in the mountains also opened fire at Qin Guang. Wen, Taoist Song, and the others wanted to go forward to help, but they were all injured, and their movements were already half a beat slower. Fish Tyrant Panda couldn't even protect himself as he collapsed on the ground. Wu Miaowan didn't even have time to apply medicine on him. In an instant, Qin Guang was surrounded, but his expression didn't change. He still raised his right hand and shouted, "Come on. All of you, die." He didn't want to admit that even though he had been in a mental seal state for over 100,000 years in the world and the cup, he had experienced too much. Now that he had come out, those memories still hadn't dissipated. Furthermore, without the mental seal, he was momentarily too immersed in the true martial Saint Emperor state of mind and couldn't extricate himself. Yuan's actually dared to challenge the dignity of the only martial saint in the world. He suddenly opened his right fist. In an instant, countless soil and rocks on the mountain peak were affected by his martial power and floated in the sky, defying gravity. The already gloomy sky was suddenly filled with thunder. The raindrop-like bullets that flew towards him from the mountain walls seemed to have plunged into an invisible quagmire and couldn't move an inch forward. In the world and the cup, when the Saint Emperor was enraged, corpses would float for thousands of miles. Even in this real world, there was still no one who could resist his Qi Jin. He didn't even need to make a move. Those who were slightly weaker would feel their inner strength go out of control just by being enveloped by his aura. Their dantian would explode, their meridians would shatter, and they would fall to the ground with blood spewing out of their mouths. The evil sect martial artists who were at the peak of skin strength were slightly better off, but they were also exhausted. They fell from the sky and fell to the ground. It was as if they were possessed by the devil and suffered from the backlash of their martial power. They kept spitting out blood. Ouyang Tianqing was only one realm lower than Qin Guang, and he had the supernatural ability of the world-shattering holy tribe. He managed to turn his body into sand in time and greatly reduce the impact of Qin Guang's inner strength. However, he didn't feel good either. Qin Guang stopped and turned around. He still had his hands behind his back as he looked at Ouyang Tianqing. "I didn't want to use my full strength. Otherwise, I would have killed myself." He wasn't joking. The martial sage realm communicated with heaven and earth, and the inner strength in their bodies formed a system. Their meridians were unobstructed, and endless inner strength flowed through them. Every inch of their skin, and even every strand of their hair, could be turned into a divine weapon. When they breathed, they could cause the yin and yang qi of heaven and earth to vibrate. They were almost one with nature. Chen Guang's physical body was perfect, but it was still the result of training in the Sky Line Cup's middle realm. It was far from the inner strength technique he had learned in the Clear Sky Cup's middle realm. Even he couldn't withstand it. In short, it meant that he was too strong now, and when he was angry, he couldn't even defeat himself. Ouyang Tianqing saw that his subordinates were either dead or injured in an instant. Then, he looked at Chen Guang's almost invincible aura. His heart turned completely cold. He couldn't fight him head-on. He had to escape. Take my finger-snapping grenade. Ouyang Tianqing pretended to attack, but he was secretly gathering his qi. With a flick of his finger, a gust of qi flew straight at Chen Guang. At the same time, Chen Guang stepped into the air, and with a series of banging sounds, he began to fly backwards. Chen Guang, however, raised his hand and opened his palm. When the finger-snapping thunder energy hit his palm, it was like a mosquito bite without any sensation. Trying to run. The 3636th move of the true martial divine art, melancholic astral absorption palm. Chen Guang felt that his naming cancer had been cured. The random moves he came up with sounded F*King domineering. In truth, he did not even know what this move was called. In any case, it was just one of the 400,000 martial emperor's unique skills that he had learned back then. It was a move that focused on suction. Ouyang Tianqing, who was fleeing in midair, paused and flew backward. However, Chen Guang quickly withdrew his hand. The reason was that Xian Qin, who was standing next to him, also put her face on his belly. You sucked me too. Miscalculation, miscalculation. Chen Guang let go of Xian Qin and helped her stand up again. In the next instant, he suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was less than a meter behind Ouyang Tianqing. He opened his right hand and turned it into a Buddha's palm. He grabbed the mastermind behind the scenes who had been so arrogant a minute ago. No! Ouyang Tianqing screamed in pain, but it was useless. Chen Guang grabbed the back of his neck, and he could not break free. He used the melancholic astral absorption palm again. However, what was fatal was not the inner force. It was Chen Guang's Earth Exploder's racial talent. Ouyang Tianqing wanted to turn into sand and escape. However, the Earth Exploder's racial talent was mixed with his inner force, so he could not use it. Come on, why don't you try acting tough again? Chen Guang grabbed him and landed on the ground. His pupils shrank again. His racial talent and astral absorption palm took effect at the same time. Die! With a loud explosion, Ouyang Tianqing exploded. There was no blood or flesh, only yellow sand. Still trying to escape. Chen Guang finally took out his left hand. He put his palms together in front of him. His palms were 5 inches apart. Inner force surged out from his palms, and the two inner forces intertwined. An even stronger suction force surged out from his palms. It locked the yellow sand in the air and pulled it towards Chen Guang's palm. Ouyang Tianqing's desperate scream came from the sand. What skill is this? Chen Guang scoffed. It is your honor to die under my true martial divine art's 9th skill, Spiral Pill. Xian Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Wen Wen were speechless. Where the hell did you learn this unorthodox way of doing things? Ouyang Tianqing's scream gradually stopped. Not a single grain of sand escaped. In the end, he was pressed into a fist-sized rock in Chen Guang's palm. Others might not know what was going on, but Chen Guang knew what was going on. This pitiful world-shattering holy tribe's last holy lord had become his nourishment. The orange-yellow rock that represented his corpse no longer had any signs of life or the esper ability of the world-shattering holy tribe. It had all been sucked dry. No! Mr. Ing. Behind Chen Guang, Demon Sovereign Jiao and the others who were still alive screamed in pain. Stop screaming. You're next. Chen Guang used his left hand to suck Demon Sovereign Jiao over. Hand over the antidote for Wenwen's father and I'll give you a quick death. Dream on. Demon Sovereign Jiao opened his mouth and wanted to bite Chen Guang. Mr. Ing was dead. Without the antidote, Demon Sovereign Jiao would naturally die as well. There should be someone who knows what's good for him, right? Chen Guang impatiently shook his hand and shattered this person again. He looked back and saw that the others were also committing suicide. In an instant, Shadow Alliance was completely destroyed. All of this took a long time to describe. From the time he ate dirt to the time he failed to act cool, it had only been less than 2 minutes, but the situation had been completely reversed. Chen Guang looked at the corpses on the ground unhappily. These people deserved to die, but he still hadn't gotten the antidote for Wenwen's father. This was bad. Just now, he lost control of his emotions and didn't stop. What should he do? Just as he was thinking about this, a weak voice came from afar. Don't kill me. I should be able to find the antidote. Chen Guang stared at the voice. Yo, isn't this Zhou He's nephew, Zhou Li? You're pretty good at being a famous uploader on Bilibili. Zhou Li trembled as he stood up. Actually, I was forced to do this. I've never killed anyone before. I just like to deal with these things. Really? I can't die. I still have many fans on Bilibili waiting for me to update my videos. I can't stop. Chen Guang felt that what he said made sense. Chapter 9:15. Chen Guang got Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan to bring the people from Guangding headquarters to rest. Many people were injured by Ouyang Tianqing's attack. Other than the unlucky old man who died on the spot, many others were injured. Fortunately, they had the battlefield doctor, Wu Miaowan. Although her medicine box wasn't big, it was filled with all the necessary items. Xuelin and her troops had retreated not far away. Once the order was given, Xuelin immediately brought her people back. As for the martial artists who had retreated, Chen Guang gave Xan Qin full authority to deal with them. Those who were certain that they were going to die and that staying behind would only be sending themselves to their deaths, the ones who escaped the fastest and shouted the loudest didn't need to come back. Since they had become wolves that couldn't be tamed, they couldn't blame others for settling the score later. As for people like Taoist Song Song and Fish Tyrant Panda, the top experts in their sect stayed behind, and the elders who left to ensure that their disciples would continue, they were welcome to return. Of course, it didn't take a genius to know that once those inner strength martial artists who escaped heard that not only did Chen Guang not die, but he even counterattacked, they would definitely piss their pants and run back to beg for the bureau chief's forgiveness. The bureau chief didn't care whether he forgave them or not. Anyway, he didn't expect much from them from the start. From the start, he was just waiting for Liuli to show off and bring him flying. However, the two deputy bureau chiefs who had lost their master would definitely have a huge knot in their hearts. It wouldn't be easy to get over it. At this moment, the bureau chief and Wenwen held Zhou Li, who had betrayed them and turned into a guide, and headed towards the underground base of Shadow Alliance in the mountains. Kid! Hurry up! Wenwen was very anxious at the moment. That's right. Don't think that I'll let you off easily just because you haven't killed anyone. Don't think that you can pretend that nothing happened just because you're a professional uploader. You've ruined my reputation. The bureau chief was even more anxious now. Fortunately, Jiuli did not disappoint him, and when without much effort, they finally found the antidote in the underground warehouse. This brat was clearly a smart one. With his identity, he should not have the right to know the password to this storeroom, but he actually raised his hand and entered the password. Also, he heard that almost all the Shadow Alliance warriors had been drugged by Ouyang Tianqing, but he did not seem worried at all. He was definitely not one of the unlucky ones. To be on the safe side, the two of them even let Jiuli try one on the spot to confirm that there was no problem. However, Chen Guang wasn't in a good mood at the moment because he saw something he didn't want to see in the warehouse. The items on the shelves were human skin masks. These masks looked exactly the same as the old men in Yanjing. Ouyang Tianqing was not lying. Although he did not know what other tricks he had up his sleeves, he was really planning to take drastic measures to replace the crown prince with a civet cat just by looking at these masks that could pass off as the real thing. If it weren't for Chen Guang's sudden appearance, he would have succeeded. How are these things made? When Chen Guang took a sniff, it was filled with the smell of medicine from the morgue. Jiuli wanted to say something but stopped. Do you really think I won't kill you? Chen Guang raised his eyebrows. Jiuli said helplessly, I don't know the exact process, but from what I know, to make a standard mask, at least a few hundred lives have to be sacrificed. Every mask has to be made from a living person, slowly adjusting the person's appearance so that they look like the person in the photo. When the time is right, they are killed and the mask is removed. But in the process, there are many failures and few successes. As for those failed test subjects, sigh, I don't approve of it. However, they did say that they were test subjects. In the end, they were all killed. Making a rough count, Chen Guang estimated that there were over 100 masks here. That means that tens of thousands of innocent people have lost their lives because of this. Can't they use synthetic ones? Do they have to make it so bloody? Jiuli thought about it. No, I heard that they tried before, but the effect of synthetic ones isn't very good, and it's easy to leak the information. With Mr. Ying's personality, he would definitely choose a more convenient method. The real data will be more than this, not less. After all, during the process of kidnapping people, there will be some resistance, right? As Chen Guang sucked in a cold breath, he exclaimed, fuck. I let Ouyang Tianqing die too easily. If I knew this, I would have captured him and cut off his fingernail-sized flesh every day. I would have cut him to death slowly for a few years. Alright, what did you do? Since when did your taste become so heavy? If he's dead, then he's dead. Anyway, this won't happen again. Wenwen poked his shoulder. She didn't feel good about it, but since the culprit had been executed, there was no point in pursuing the matter. Chen Guang patted the back of Wenwen's hand impatiently. Please be more respectful when you speak to His Majesty the Holy Emperor. Yo, is your tail growing? His Majesty the Holy Emperor. His Majesty. His Majesty. I'll give you a kidney. Kidney or not? How about a kidney? His Majesty the Holy Emperor walked out of the underground base with Sect Master Wen. The Shadow Alliance members who were still alive were squatting on the ground with their hands over their heads. There were also a few Pi Gene experts patrolling the area, who had been bandaged by Wu Miaoan but could still move. On the other side, Panda, the boxing tyrant, was lying on the ground with a few seriously injured people, crying out in pain. His luck was pretty good, and his martial arts were profound enough to protect his heart meridian at the critical moment. Although the injury on his chest looked terrifying, he had barely escaped with his life this time. Chief, Xuelin said that they'll be here for a while. Xan Qin braced herself and continued to do her job as the deputy chief. Chen Guang's heart ached when he saw her like this. He patted her shoulder. Thank you for your hard work. It's all right, I can still hold on. She was strong in front of others, but now that this was over, she couldn't help but feel sad every time she thought of her master's tragic death. Chen Guang quietly pulled her to the side. I have something to tell you. Call little Miao Miao over too. 2 minutes later, Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan stared at him with their mouths agape. They almost thought they heard wrong. You. Can you say that again? Our master isn't dead. Xan Qin tried her best to suppress her overly excited emotions and said in a low voice. Wu Miaowan squeezed Chen Guang's shoulder tightly, afraid that he was just teasing them. Although I hope you're telling the truth, but how is that possible? With a mysterious smile, Chen Guang asked, have you guys forgotten? I'm the omnipotent Grand Magister Right Chin. But aren't you an Earth Grand Magister? Don't tell me you're a dual cultivator of necromancy. But that's not very good, right? Wu Miaowan said hesitantly. She was in a dilemma. She hoped that her guess was true, but she also felt that it wasn't very appropriate. Chen Guang patted her head. What nonsense are you thinking? I'm such a decent person, how could I possibly learn necromancy? You've read too many web novels. Wake up. Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan didn't know how to ridicule him from which angle. A person who talks about Rasengan has the cheek to say that we've read too many web novels. In short, I can't explain it to you more clearly now, but you have to believe me. I've never lied to you. I've already saved Senior Axian and Senior Wu's lives, but I can't say for sure whether you'll meet them again in the future. At this moment, it's impossible for Chen Guang to prove anything to the two of them. Hence, he could only make use of their absolute trust in him to dispel the sorrow in their hearts. Xan Qin was skeptical. You're really not talking nonsense? Wu Miaowan also asked. You're really not teasing us? Chen Guang nodded heavily. I swear on my 2 real names, Chen Guang and Right Chin. If I'm lying to you, I'll be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Don't make such a deadly oath. We'll believe you, okay? Xan Qin hurriedly covered his mouth and secretly glanced at the slightly anxious Wen in the distance. She secretly felt a surge of sweetness in her heart. As he said, he really cares about me. Alright, that's it then, huh? When Xuelin comes later, I'll ask her to cooperate with you to deal with the aftermath. I think there's still a lot of people in this underground base. These people have to be captured and interrogated one by one. Don't let any of them go. Especially that one called Jiu Li. Chen Guang pointed at Jiu Li, who was squatting down with the others, and specially reminded her. His voice was a little loud, and Jiu Li heard it. She raised her head with a pale face. I'm really wronged. Chen Guang didn't know how wrong Jiu Li was, nor did he want to know. He didn't even wait for Xuelin and the others to arrive, but turned around and left with Wen. I'll go back alone. Why are you following me? Wen asked Chen Guang, who was running side by side with her. Chen Guang's face was calm. I'm worried about you. Besides, don't you want to say something? Now that he was free, he had gone through untold hardships to make a comeback. Now that he had such an amazing martial power, if he didn't show it off in front of her, how could he be worthy of the hundreds of thousands of years he had spent in the true martial land? Don't you look down on me? Don't you think you can handle everything by yourself? Don't you think you'll harm me if you bring me along? Don't you think I'm a burden? He. Wen looked back at him and took a deep breath. After a long time, she said, thank you. She really didn't want to admit that it was really difficult for her to say those words to Chen Guang. Chen Guang suddenly felt comfortable. At least you have a conscience. My hard work wasn't in vain. Hard work? What hard work? If you had this ability, you should have shown it earlier. Sect leader Axion and sect leader Wu died so tragically, but you? What the hell are you thinking? Unexpectedly, Wenwen suddenly exploded. She had been holding it in, holding it in, holding it in. She didn't want to fight for Axion Qin and Wu Miaowan. She didn't want to blame Chen Guang for other people's matters, even if she always felt that he was wrong. But according to Wenwen's previous principles, even if she knew he was wrong, she would support him unconditionally. However, it was different this time. Lives were lost, and it was the lives of two people who were like masters and mothers to the woman he cared about very much. If Chen Guang didn't court death himself, Wenwen would think that he might still be forcing himself to smile. In that case, she would let him off the hook for now. When everyone's emotions had completely stabilized in the future, she would step forward to uphold justice for Axion Qin and Wu Miaowan. Previously, she had found a random excuse to ruthlessly knock this fellow's head. Actually, it was because Wenwen was angry in her heart. In the end, not only did this guy not show any signs of repentance, he even had the cheek to come to her and ask for credit. She couldn't stand it anymore. Chen Guang didn't expect that not only would he not be able to show off, he would also explode. How could he explain to Wenwen that he really wasn't hiding his strength before, but that he was really that weak and only became strong at the last moment? But that didn't make sense at all. What if I told you the truth, that I really didn't hide my strength, and that I paid a huge price to stimulate my life's potential, and that was how I managed to obtain invincible strength in that helpless moment? Would you believe me? Chen Guang took a deep breath. He couldn't let this injustice go to waste. Otherwise, he would feel too vexed. He decided to tell a white lie so that his seemingly invincible strength in the land of true martial wouldn't be in vain for hundreds of thousands of years. Chapter 9:16. Wenwen's face froze. What's wrong with you? If it was in the past, when her realm was higher than Chen Guang's, she could clearly see what was going on in Chen Guang's body. But now, Chen Guang's cultivation was so deep that it was beyond her imagination and understanding. Even though she was at the literature grandmaster realm, she still felt that he was unfathomable. According to the records in the ancient books, Chen Guang had obviously surpassed her literature grandmaster realm and reached a level that no one could imagine. Chen Guang took another 2 steps forward. It's nothing much. I can only tell you one thing. The legends about breaking through the void and turning into a human are all lies. There are no martial artists in this world who can break through the void. Even the strongest martial artist cannot break through the void. Wenwen did not know why he suddenly said this, and her face was filled with confusion. How do you know? Chen Guang smiled miserably, because I have already touched the limits of martial artists in this world. 20,000 years ago and 20,000 years later, it is impossible to find a martial artist who is stronger than me. I used the painting that you gave me to enter the Tao, but now I am cultivating the true martial divine skill that I created myself. As for my current realm, I am unable to describe it, but it is definitely above your Wenzhong realm. I have named it the Martial Sage realm. This is also the last realm that humans can reach by cultivating their inner strength. No one will be stronger than me. Wenwen gasped. She really didn't know how to describe the feeling in her heart. As the strongest martial artist in the world, she couldn't imagine what kind of price a person had to pay in order to instantly leap from the beginner level of muscle strength to the strongest in history, which no one had ever done before or since. But she could clearly see from Chen Guang's face that he was definitely not joking. The strength that he had displayed when he had killed Ouyang Tianqing and the others also proved that he was not bragging. Wenwen thought for a long time and asked, "What did you do?" Chen Guang sighed, "Don't ask me anymore. I cannot tell you, but time will prove everything." Wenwen could tell from his tone that there was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. She hurriedly said, "No. You cannot die." Chen Guang continued, "I don't want to die either, but in this big world, who can avoid death? Who can be eternal? This is my choice, and I'm willing to pay the price. I can't just watch you die at Ouyang Tianqing's hands, can I? Don't force me anymore. Let's go and feed the antidote to your father first." Chen Guang suddenly lifted his foot and walked forward. Under the burst of his power, his speed became extremely fast. Wenwen actually couldn't catch up with him for a moment. The two of them ran for a long time before Chen Guang slowly came to a stop. His hands were behind his back, and his face was bleak. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Wenwen caught up with them. She had to spend a lot of effort to calm herself down along the way. Chen Guang smiled faintly. "What's the point of saying that? Nothing can be changed. You know me. I actually didn't want you to worry. I didn't want to tell you these things at first. I'm also very sad about the deaths of sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu. But since you've misunderstood me, I don't want you to think that I'm a cold-blooded and heartless person." Sigh. Wenwen didn't know what to say. She also knew that there would be no result if she continued to force him. She could only quietly approach him and hold his arm. "It's been hard on you. It's not hard. It's all worth it. Anyway, I've said it before. We're the Condor heroes. It's a pity that my arm has grown out. Otherwise, we'd look even more like the Condor heroes," Chen Guang said as he put his arm around Wenwen's waist. He had finally managed to fool her. In any case, he had to first create an illusion for her so that she could imagine the price she had to pay in order to obtain such great power. "The Condor heroes are not bad, but can you not touch my butt so eagerly? I'm a little, not mentally prepared. Sorry, I accidentally put it crooked." Chen Guang looked serious, but he had already begun to laugh at himself in his heart. It was really not intentional. His hand didn't listen to him at all. On second thought, any normal pure man who hadn't touched a woman for more than 100,000 years would not be able to control himself when there was such a beautiful woman beside him who could earn his overnight fee. "Why do you think I have to follow you home? My whole body doesn't listen to me now. I'm completely dominated by the hot blood in my heart. If it weren't for the fact that it was important to detoxify Wenwen's father, Chen Guang really didn't have the face to do it before detoxifying her father. Now, he might not be able to control his power and would punish her on the spot. In fact, looking for Xian Qin was also a good choice. However, Chen Guang thought that the little loli's power was low after all, and it was impossible for her to withstand his whipping. On the other hand, although Abbess Xian Yuan was not really dead, outsiders didn't think so. Not to mention that it was futile to guard the coffin for 3 years, but it was not appropriate to do something shameful with her now. Therefore, he didn't think much in his mind at all. He was dominated by his instinct to come to Wenwen's side. "I used to be upright, but no matter how upright a person is, he is still a human. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires. Who can understand how fierce the flames burning in my heart are? As for the aftermath of the Shadow Alliance base, I'm sorry, I'm used to being a hands-off boss. Now that the biggest knot in my heart has been solved, I'm already very responsible for not resigning on the spot, okay? In short, I still have to resign from the position of the director of the Guangding General Headquarters." Although the little tricks that the old men used on the intelligence about Wenwen did not have much impact on the result of the matter, it still made people unhappy. For the sake of Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua, and for the sake that it did not cause too much bad consequences, Chen Guang did not intend to fall out with the old men on the spot, but he planned to quit. Sorry, the old man will not play this game of deception with you young people who are too cunning. It is too tiring, too boring, and too tiring. He was really right this time. With his current life experience, there was nothing wrong with treating the old men in Yanjing as young people. Actually, what happened in Ninghai province did cause a great shock in Yanjing at this time. Before that, everyone only regarded Qin Guang as a mouthpiece to communicate with the master of the Wen family, the #1 expert in the world. This idea had always been right, and he had completed his mission very well. Until he became a hostage because of his own recklessness. Before, the old men in Yanjing were even hesitating whether to give up on him, but in the end, because of the insistence of Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua, and also because they had to consider the attitude of the master of the Wen family, the old men decided to compromise and save Qin Guang's life as the first priority. Of course, this matter was just a thought after all, and it seemed that they could do nothing but pray for him. But suddenly, the master of the Wen family, the #1 expert in the world, was almost defeated. No, he was really defeated. But he, Qin Guang, suddenly stood up at the critical moment and saved the crisis. This person, who was once a messenger, had instantly uprooted the entire Shadow Alliance's evil faction with an unstoppable force. In the face of his absolute crushing strength, those extremely tyrannical and headache-inducing internal strength martial artists did not have the slightest power to resist at all. How powerful was he? This was beyond understanding, and it made people's hair stand on end at the thought of it. What happened to the mouthpiece? After all this time, the real big boss was not the master of the Wen family, nor was it Ouyang Tianqing, Mr. Ing. In the end, it was you. Even Wu Shan, who already knew that he had 800 kilograms of fist force, was shocked. Although he was good at fighting in the past, he was still within the scope of an ordinary person. However, the strength he displayed now was not only beyond the comprehension of ordinary people, but even other inner force martial artists were no match for him. Master Wen was already strong enough, and even the most advanced individual weapons might not be able to deal with him. Now that he was a bit stronger than the master of the Wen family, what was his level? It was unimaginable, beyond understanding. Perhaps even the peerless masters described by those martial arts novels full of illusions might not be able to match up to him. Regarding the thoughts of the elders, Qin Guang personally expressed that he did not care at all. He and Wenwen rushed for half a day, and found the car she had hidden by the roadside. The god of racing personally went out, and they sped along the mountain path, then onto the main road. Half an hour later, the two of them arrived at a civilian airport, and directly boarded a helicopter. After half a day, they arrived at Wujing Sanatorium, and together with Wenwen, they fed the antidote to her father's mouth. Seeing that Wenwen's father's complexion was gradually improving, the two of them let out a long sigh of relief, and could finally be at ease. Wen Jingtian's poison had just healed, and the poison had almost entered his vitals. It would probably take a long time for him to fully recover. Furthermore, he had lost all his power, and it was unlikely that he would be able to recover to the tyrannical old master of the Wen family. He would probably only be able to live like a normal old man. When Wen Jingtian woke up, he held on to Wenwen's hand and asked her many questions. When he found out that while he was unconscious, second uncle had died at the hands of third uncle, tears streamed down his face. He also found out that Wenwen had become a master of the Thought Grandmaster realm, and this comforted him greatly. When he heard that it was that good friend of Wenwen, Qin Guang, whom he had always looked down on, who had defeated all the heroes at the critical moment and suppressed the evil mastermind who had harmed two of the three great families, he was even more shocked. In the past, I did not approve of you befriending an ordinary person like Qin Guang, but now it seems that I was wrong. I was too narrow-minded. It is fate that you two know each other, and you should cherish it in the future. Wen Jingtian patted Wenwen's hand, and then waved his hand. I'm a little sleepy. You youngsters don't have to accompany me. Bring Chen Guang around, and there will be people here to look after me. Wenwen wanted to say something, but her father had already turned his face away. She didn't know if he was really asleep or just pretending to be asleep. Chen Guang pulled on her sleeve, and Wenwen had no choice but to follow him out. Did you hear what your father said? From now on, you are mine. Remember, a woman's 3 obediences and 4 virtues, be a little more respectful to your husband. Chen Guang thought to himself proudly. He had not thought that he would receive the appreciation of Wenwen's father so easily. This father-in-law really had good foresight, and was very open-minded. Wenwen stepped on his foot. Oh, you really want to marry me? Aren't you afraid that I'll upset the vinegar jar? Do you think that no one knows about those bewitching things of yours? Chen Guang was stunned, and his entire person was a bit like a Spartan. Come on, look at how nervous you are. Do you think I don't know your temperament of eating from the bowl and looking at the pot? If I really wanted to care about you, I would have done it a long time ago. Today is not the first day you know me. No matter what others think, I, your brother, don't care so much. Chen Guang was overjoyed. This was indeed his good gay friend. What kind of beauty was the best one? Just like Wenwen. So, what should we do now? I haven't earned a knight's fee for a long time. I'm so anxious. Go away. I'm not in the mood right now. Then what should I do to be in the mood? You'll be in the mood if you can't see me. I say, what the hell is going on in your mind? You. Why don't you hurry up and think of a way at this time? How long do you have to live? As far as I know, even if it's just an evil skill that can advance one level of power, it will at least shorten one's life by 10 years. Now that you have entered the invincible realm from the beginning of muscle strength, you can't only live for a few days, can you? That's right. Since her father's business was settled, Wenwen began to worry about Chen Guang's safety again. Chen Guang didn't know how to explain it to her. I can't answer you even if you ask me. It may be a few days or a few years. In fact, the method I used is quite special. You can think of it as a deal between me and the devil. Wenwen's heart tightened. She pinched his wrist and didn't know what to say. So, life is short, and we should enjoy ourselves. You can't let me go to heaven with regrets, can you? When the truth was revealed, Chen Guang didn't have the time to consider how badly he would be beaten up. At this moment, Lone Dragon, who had lived for over 100,000 years, was feeling thirsty. Now that he no longer had any worries in his heart, he couldn't stay still for a second longer. Okay. Wenwen had never shown such a bashful look in her entire life. Even the last 2 times she really had sex with him, she had never shown such a shy look. Half an hour later, Chen Guang only wore a pair of underwear, a satchel on his waist, and wrapped Wenwen in a quilt. He jumped out of a pile of debris. Wenwen blushed and screamed, I told you not to do it here. Chen Guang said, can you blame me? I deliberately asked for a villa in this sanatorium. I didn't expect this shabby house to be so weak. Are you trying to embarrass me to death? No. Absolutely not. This is an accident. The medical staff in the sanatorium looked at the completely collapsed villa from afar and sighed. This is terrible. What were they doing in that room? Were they practicing? I think so. Anyway, people who practice martial arts have some quirks. It's just a pity that a good house was wasted. So these people who practice martial arts should be disciplined. It's really terrible, collapsing a house at the drop of a hat. Isn't Chief Chin in charge of this himself? Stop gossiping about him behind his back. Chief Chen is famous for being narrow-minded. If he hears about this, He'll make things difficult for you in the future. You're the one who is talking behind his back. I didn't say anything. Chapter 9:17. Chen Guang was bored to death as he sat in the conference room of the Guangdong General Headquarters. He yawned from time to time, and his eyes shone subconsciously. He was full of unhappiness. Ever since he accidentally became the strongest pile driver, he couldn't find an opponent who could let him fight to his heart's content. Yesterday, with all kinds of persuasion, all kinds of threats and promises, all kinds of outbursts of acting, all kinds of cute, all kinds of shameless, he finally made Wen give in again and again. After the two escaped into the mountains, they found a small lake and fought. The battle was so intense that the sun and the moon lost their light, and the sky changed color. However, with the alertness of the two, they were not afraid of being seen by others. They fought from the afternoon until late at night, and then from deep into the night until dawn. They did not even have a bite to eat, and their stomachs were rumbling with hunger. In the morning, Chen Guang wanted to continue, but Wen couldn't stand him anymore. She kicked him into the lake, tore the quilt into a long skirt, and ran away barefoot. Chen Guang was like a thief, wearing only a pair of underwear, and carefully took an online taxi. Fortunately, his phone was always in his bag, or he would be reduced to running home in only his underwear. It was just that when he got in the car, the driver looked at him up and down with all kinds of suspicious eyes, which made him feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, he was thick-skinned, or else he might be embarrassed to get in someone else's car. Fortunately, it was only 6:30 in the morning when he got home, and the people in the community hadn't woken up yet. He didn't dare to go through the front door, but directly climbed over the wall. Other than scaring a cute girl in the elevator who got up to run in the morning, life was peaceful, and the world was peaceful. In short, he covered his face in the elevator, so no one recognized him as the super popular internet celebrity, Chen Guang. He planned to have a good sleep, and when he woke up, it would be a new life. Thanks to Wen, he had been out of the land of Jinwu for half a day, and now his mentality was slightly calmer. However, Chen Guang could still vaguely remember what had happened in the true martial land, and it still affected him. He didn't have a good solution to this. If not for the Holy Grail's spiritual seal, he really did not dare to imagine what he would become after living for more than 100,000 years. Time could change too many things. No matter how tenacious he was, it was impossible for him to withstand the erosion and invasion of his character over time. Just like now, even though he had already come out, even though his mind was completely sealed in the world in the cup, just recalling the memories of the past few years was enough to subtly influence his words and actions. Otherwise, with his personality, he wouldn't have been able to slaughter the Shadow Alliance warriors so easily and cleanly. Fortunately, a person's memory was indeed a good thing. Although Chen Guang's brain seemed to have an unlimited capacity, it was impossible for him to remember everything that had happened over hundreds of thousands of years. Along the way in the land of Jinwu, other than the various martial arts that he absolutely could not forget, he was like a monkey trying to break the grain, forgetting everything along the way. He had left countless legends for others, and naturally, there would be writers or historians who would record them down. However, he never read them himself and was too lazy to recall them, so he had forgotten most of his own legends. What he could remember was a portion of the unforgettable battles and killings, and a few relatively important people. Now, he felt that if he slept again, he would feel much better. He would forget what he should forget, and pull himself back from that cold-blooded, ruthless, and domineering true martial holy emperor. Unfortunately, he did not manage to sleep. Just as he lay down, he received a call and was dragged to the headquarters to host a meeting. Chen Guang did not want to come, but he could not resist Axayan Qin and Wu Miaowan's strong request, so he finally came to sit here and be the boss. He had already made up his mind. I don't want to be the stupid bureau chief anymore. I'm quitting. From now on, I'll happily be my internet celebrity, and I'll happily earn more faith points. Whoever wants to be the stupid bureau chief can be it. Compared to the 3,000 worlds in my heavenly holy grail, the mere authority of the divine light headquarters is not attractive at all. Of course, there was one more thing that he had to do, or else his heart would be in turmoil. As a petty young man who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, he would take revenge if there was a grudge, and this matter could not be resolved peacefully. He had been tricked, and he had been tricked by someone using Jiang Yage. Before entering the office in the morning, Chen Guang had specially called Jiang Yage about this matter. That poor girl, after hearing that he had escaped from danger yesterday, she was finally relieved. Before that, she was so haggard that her soul almost left her body. Jiang Yage also knew that she had been used, and she had not felt at ease for even a second. After Chen Guang escaped from danger, she had tried several times to summon the courage to call Chen Guang to explain herself, but every time she picked up her phone, she did not dare to dial the number. In the end, this morning, Chen Guang took the initiative to call her. Not only did he not blame her, but he even took the initiative to comfort her. She felt so guilty that she almost wanted to commit suicide on the spot. Her tears flowed like running water. Chen Guang was also angry, but not because of Jiang Yage. It was bad enough that he had been tricked, but the other party had even dragged Jiang Yage into this mess. Let's see how she was tortured. Alright, don't cry. Later, just pretend that nothing happened. Your father was right. These things need evidence, but I'll think of a way. The one who leaked the news to you was Chao Jingming, right? I remember him. I won't let this go, but don't get involved. But I feel bad, if it wasn't for me, hey, how can there be so many ifs in this world? You had good intentions, and I don't blame you. Nothing happened to me, so don't get entangled in this matter, okay? Be good, listen to me. If you really feel bad, then do something big. Chen Guang was not very good at comforting people. After thinking about it, this was probably the only way to make her feel a little better. Based on the principle of saving people, Chen Guang decided to make a great sacrifice. At the cost of his own decent image, he took the initiative to ask her for something big. Otherwise, what else could he do? Scold her because of this matter? Beat her up? Make her sad? Or draw a line with her? No, really no. She had good intentions, but she was too naive to be used. She did not do anything wrong, and there was no need to struggle mentally to forgive her. But Chao Jingming could not be forgiven. When have I ever been taken advantage of? No one has ever been able to come out unscathed after tricking me. The number of people I have killed in the land of true martial can be counted from 18 generations of your ancestors until now. He did not care about the old men's tricks, but he felt that Chao Jingming had to be accounted for. Since Chao Jingming wanted his life, Chen Guang felt that there's nothing wrong with him crushing Chao Jingming to death if there's a need. The disadvantage of not letting him sleep was reflected here. At this moment, he was still in the state of the Saint Emperor, who was revered by the people of the land of true martial. This time, in the battle against Ouyang Tianqing and the other criminals, most of the members of the headquarters performed bravely. Under the leadership of Chief Qin, we successfully annihilated all the criminals and completed the mission. The following is the commendation list for this operation. Chen Guang, the Chief Qin, should have said these things personally, but he was unhappy and not in the mood. He could only sit on the rostrum and act like a god. Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan had no choice but to do it for him. This commendation was not a big deal. It was nothing more than a nice name. The success of this counterattack was ultimately due to the efforts of the strongest Chief Qin in history. As for the others, other than the sects that persisted until the end, such as the Plainclothes sect, the Fist sect, and the Xinqing sect, as well as the Thousand Despair sect and Thousand Flower Valley who suffered heavy losses. The others did not play much of a role. What made Chen Guang unhappy was that those who chose to run away after he was kidnapped instead of staying behind with Enchanting and Wu Miaowan were still in the meeting room today. How shameless of them! He originally thought that Enchanting and Wu Miaowan would reject these people and make a list for them to deal with later. He did not expect the two little girls to be so generous even though they were young and naive. But I'm sorry, just because I'm generous doesn't mean I'm generous too. I'm very narrow-minded. When Enchanting finished reading the list of commendations one by one, Chen Guang took a deep breath and lightly knocked on the table. He was about to stand up and say something. Seeing that the Chief Chen was about to declare his position, even those martial artists of the pugilistic world who had never seen him in action sat up straight. Even until now, many people did not dare to believe that this Chief Chen, who seemed to have relied on a woman to get to his position, was the true invincible expert. However, the truth that his colleagues had seen with their own eyes could not be faked. Enchanting gave Chen Guang a look, hoping that he would not be so calculative. Chen Guang did not respond to her. Instead, he stood up and looked around. This time, he did not deliberately restrain the energy in his body. Instead, he continued to circulate his martial sage realm strength endlessly through his limbs and bones. An invisible aura rose from his body. Just now, Deputy Chief Axayan has commended some people, but I personally do not agree with this list. I'm sure everyone here knows what I'm referring to. However, one should always forgive and forget. I will not pursue this matter for the time being, but I hope that those who understand will take the initiative to make a statement. Since the establishment of the headquarters, the progress of the collection of cultivation methods has not been smooth. Since they are not willing to work for the headquarters, then we have to compensate them in other ways. Chief, now that your strength is far superior to ours, you don't want the cultivation methods of small sects like ours, do you? These things are the foundation of our sect's survival. This is not very good, right? As soon as Chen Guang's voice fell, the leader of the blood-clad sect was the first to stand up. Chen Guang did not get angry with him. He only turned around and looked at him calmly without saying a word. After a long time, cold sweat gradually appeared on the leader's forehead. Seeing that no one else stood up to respond to him, he suddenly felt extremely awkward. Chapter 9:18. Chen Guang waved his hand and did not look at him again. Instead, he turned to Wu Miaowan and asked, "How are the survivors of the Six-Sword sect doing?" Wu Miaowan replied expressionlessly. She was not as easy to talk to as Enchanting. Seeing that Chen Guang was about to show his might, she felt happy. Currently, most of them have been arrested. Only a few managed to escape. However, we have already issued a warrant for their arrest. I believe that they have nowhere else to run. Chen Guang nodded. That's good. There is no need to talk too much about these sections. Anyone who resists arrest will be killed without mercy. After he finished speaking, he turned to look at the blood-cloth sect leader. What did you say just now? No. Nothing. Head chief is right. The blood-cloth sect master quickly sat down in embarrassment. Although Chen Guang did not directly answer his question, his attitude was very clear. He had already suffered at the hands of the Six-Sword sect once. He would not repeat the same mistake. What he meant was that if he continued to be uncooperative, he would be treated as a traitor like the Six-Sword sect. This might seem like child's play to those in power in China. However, in the Jianghu, it was normal for people to draw their swords because of suspicion. How could there be so many tricks in the Jianghu? In the past, it was not uncommon for one to offend an expert with a single rude word, and one would end up in a state of total annihilation. With the strength that the head chief had displayed, he was completely capable of uprooting the entire blood cloth sect. When the time came, the sect would be gone. What was the point of talking about techniques? Chen Guang saw that he was sensible and nodded. Everyone is so cooperative. That's good. I did not want to force you, but there has to be an explanation. You cannot say that you will not give it to me because I do not need it. Whether it is useful or not is my business. However, whether you give it to me or not is your business. You must first correct your attitude. Before I say I don't want it, you can't say you won't give it to me, understand? As Chen Guang spoke, he retracted his aura and looked around. Finally, his gaze stopped on the blood cloth sect leader's face. The pitiful fellow braced himself and stood up. Dejectedly, he said, I understand. It's good that you understand. Sit down. Back in the true martial land, Chen Guang was much more domineering when he spoke to others. But now, he was much more restrained. The reason why he was ambushed back then was due to many coincidences. Long Dingtian's treachery and cunning played a part in it, but it was also due to his own carelessness. Of course, the Six Swords sect played an important role in it as well. Since things had already progressed to this stage, Chen Guang could not punish himself by committing suicide to apologize to the world. Naturally, the Six Swords sect and Dragon Gate delivery would continue to pursue the matter. On the other hand, it also showed that the intelligence work within the headquarters was not so perfect. Someone had stuffed the spy right under their nose. Therefore, even though Ouyang Tianqing was dead, Chen Guang did not trust the other inner force martial artists present. Of course, he soon planned to quit. He did all this so that after he escaped, Xan Qin and Wu Miaowan could continue to be deputy bureau chief or be promoted to bureau chief. It would be easier for them. The summary meeting still had to be held, but Chen Guang felt that it was meaningless to sit there. He found an excuse and went to his office to take a nap. In the end, he did not manage to sleep. Instead, he went to Cloud City to take stock of the amount of faith points he had obtained from all the trouble he had caused in the true martial land. The harvest was not bad. He had obtained faith points for his pencil sharpening, darts, and piano skills. As for his car racing and pilot skills, there was no hope. What? There was even a pile driver. Don't mention that. I'll cry if I talk about it. Also, because his inner force was cultivated in the true martial land, he could not obtain the statue of a god on the spot. In addition, the true martial land was huge. The Holy Emperor's martial arts were undeniably the best in the world, but whether his physical body was the best was debatable. Therefore, although he had done many things, there were only 3 that were useful. However, this was enough. Before he left, the amount of faith points he had obtained in the true martial land was exactly the same as the upper limit of the statue of a god in the middle realm of the Spirit Heavenly Cup, which was 53333. Before the Heavenly Holy Grail's level increased, it seemed that the upper limit of the faith points he could obtain from the world in the cup, which had a complete worldview. Compared to the transient ocean, which was stuck at 29,000, Chen Guang was satisfied with the true martial land's performance. He was about to roll up his blanket and sleep in, but someone suddenly popped up from his bed in the resting room. The old leaders are here. Xan Qin stood at the door of the resting room and urged him. Your immediate superiors are coming, but you're ignoring the meeting and sleeping in here. That's not very good, is it? Chen Guang crawled out of his blanket helplessly. What's not good about it? They won't be my immediate superiors in a while. Xan Qin was stunned. What's wrong? Chen Guang shrugged. Nothing much. The Poison Sect and Dark Sect have been destroyed, and Ouyang Tianqing is dead. There's no point in me continuing to be the bureau chief. I'm planning to resign. This, Enchanting recalled how unwilling he was when she first made him the bureau chief. Although she had already guessed that he would run away, she still felt her heart clench when she heard this from his mouth. Must you resign? Chen Guang nodded. Yes. Although I've always been a hands-off boss, I can't just sit in this position and do nothing. However, these things are no longer meaningful to me. Instead of wasting time on them, it's better to use them in more meaningful ways. What could be more meaningful than this? This is a vice-ministerial level position. Chen Guang smiled. Of course there is. It's power. Enchanting realized that she couldn't convince him. Others might not know, but she had seen Chen Guang's destructive power. Although she didn't know that Chen Guang's real goal was the realm and the cup in the heavenly Holy Grail, she thought he was thinking of ways to restore the power of the great sorcerer in his previous life. Although her starting point was wrong, there was nothing wrong with where she was going. This was where the pursuit between people was different. Abbess Axian Yuan and Wu Qingming's original goal was to develop the Thousand Despair sect and Thousand Flower Valley. Now that Enchanting and Wu Miaowan had taken over this heavy responsibility from their master, they had to inherit their master's unfulfilled wish. Not only did they have to be the deputy bureau chief of the Stabilization General Bureau, they had to do it well. They had to do it until everyone was satisfied. However, Chen Guang was different. He used to be so powerful. In the face of absolute power, these worldly powers were not attractive to him. He even felt that it was a waste of his life, but it didn't seem to be a problem. Look at how wronged you are. Don't pull a long face. I'm only resigning. I won't run away. Besides, with the old man's current power, even if I don't sit here, who would dare to not give me face? If you need help later, just tell me. I'll come here. Who would dare to stop me? Compared to being a bureau chief, I actually prefer being a hired thug who doesn't need to use his brain to make decisions. Really? I rarely make decisions in the Guangding General Headquarters, and it's rare for me to make a decision myself. Yet, I've been toyed with. If I hadn't used a special method to obtain absolute power at the critical moment and rendered Ouyang Tianqing's schemes meaningless, everyone would have been finished. But in the end, it still resulted in some bad consequences. Chen Guang didn't continue. He didn't want to bring up Enchanting's sad memories. Enchanting hugged his waist. Don't be like this. I, little Miaowan, don't blame you. Life and death are fated. That's true. Let's go. I wonder why the old men are here today. Chen Guang patted Enchanting's shoulder and turned to walk out. However, he was thinking about something else. I was planning to look for you in Beijing these 2 days, but you came by yourself. It's good that you came. I want to see how you are going to explain Chao Xingming's matter. Who was the most hateful person? Traitor and mole. Long Dingtian and Zhuge Ling were already dead. It was impossible for Chao Xingming to stay out of this matter. Old Chao, why do you look so restless? In the General Bureau's small conference room, a few old men were sitting together and chatting. One of the old men turned his head and asked Old Chao, who was beside him. Old Chao forced a smile. It's nothing, nothing. What do you think we should say to convince Chen Guang to hand over his authority? If he isn't willing, we can't force him, right? Another old man chuckled. You don't have to worry about this. It's not like you don't know how lazy he is. I'm afraid we just have to casually mention it and arrange a more comfortable position for him. He will be more than happy to do it. Isn't it a little inappropriate for us to burn the bridge after crossing the river? What if we offend him? No, no. Little Chen is a sensible child. As long as we explain it to him clearly, he won't have any thoughts. He is ultimately different from Ouyang. You make it sound easy, but didn't we come here behind old Jiang and old Jin's backs because we have ulterior motives? But if we let little Shui take over his position, he shouldn't have any objections, right? Outside the conference room, Chen Guang, who was about to push the door open, suddenly froze. Although the soundproofing of the room was very good, and even Axian Qin, who was beside him, could not hear anything, he could hear every word of the people in the room clearly because of his profound skills. Wow, all of you. I haven't resigned yet, and after all this time, you're actually planning to let me go. Hey! Look at my bad temper. You've already made me unhappy, and now I can't agree. I won't go along with your wishes. Xuelin is my little brother, and he's my fanatic believer. I can trust him. But if I take the initiative to give up my position, there's no problem. But now you're trying to trick me. I'm sorry, no way. Chen Guang took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and entered. His expression didn't change, but his eyes looked around. Lin Jingwei's grandfather wasn't around, Jiang Yage's and Jin Shiyue's grandfathers weren't around, and there were only a few people in this group that he had an impression of. Chen Guang greets everyone. His stubborn temper rose, and he didn't show the juniors etiquette. Instead, he greeted them in the style of a person from the pugilistic world. The old men looked at each other. They hadn't even started talking, but why did Chen Guang seem to have a bad attitude? Chapter 9:19. Xiao Chen, you've worked hard this time. Old Chao seemed to be the one with the highest status in the room, so he spoke first. Chen Guang waved his hand. Not at all, not at all. I just did what I was supposed to do. Chen Guang, you've done a great service this time, so you should be rewarded. But you're still so young, and you're already the chief of the Guangding General Headquarters. It's not good to reward you for such a short period of time. Tell me, what do you want? Another old man tried to sound him out, like an old grandpa trying to coax a child. Chen Guang sneered in his heart. Maybe the next sentence would be a promotion but a demotion. No, no, no. Don't mention any rewards. What era are we in now? We don't have the same old things anymore. Since I'm the chief of the Guangding General Headquarters, even if I die on the battlefield, it's my duty. Besides, if I'm just an ordinary police officer at the grassroots level, it might be meaningful to talk about how many merits I've earned. But I'm already in this position, and I should take the lead. Don't talk about merits anymore. I don't deserve it. I'm ashamed. He smiled and cupped his hands. Let's stop them from talking first. Old Chao and the others looked at each other. What was wrong with him today? His personality was different from everyone's analysis. Old Chao braced himself and said, although that's the case, it's our army's tradition to reward based on merit. We've thought about it, and there's a department. Chen Guang immediately interrupted him. As expected, the older the wiser. He had already shut them up, and they still had the cheek to mention it. Let's not beat around the bush. I heard everything you said just now. I only have 2 words for this, no way. He was unhappy and did not care if he was a junior anymore. What? Now that Ouyang Tianqing is dead and I'm useless, you want to burn the bridge after crossing it? Xiao Chen, don't say that. That's not what we meant. Then what do you mean? Fine, if I wanted to leave on my own accord, that's fine. But now that you've brought it up, I won't agree. Even a clay bodhisattva has some anger. You guys lied to me about the information, and I haven't talked to the old gentleman yet. What? Do you think that I, Chen Guang, am good-tempered and easy to bully? If you want me to leave, you'll have to ask the other Jianghu people in the headquarters for permission first. Deputy Director Axian, am I right? Chen Guang turned to ask Enchanting. Enchanting was stunned at first, and her brain went blank for a moment. Didn't you say that you were ready to quit? What are you up to this time? However, she quickly understood that Chen Guang had a rebellious mentality, and she was happy to see it happen. That's right. Chief Chen was now the #1 expert in pugilistic world. In the past, he had been the alliance master of pugilistic world. He was the only one who could be the chief of the headquarters. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to convince the public. It wasn't easy for us to get to where we are today, and now you want to transfer him away. In any case, I'll be the first to disagree. Enchanting is the one who knows me the best. She is indeed my little dearest. Chen Guang grinned. Seeing that the old man had nothing to say, he changed the topic again. By the way, let's talk about this later. Old gentleman, I have a very important piece of information that I want to mention to you. I won't be happy if I don't get it out. As he spoke, he looked at Old Man Chow. If he remembered correctly, this old man had been sitting in front of Chao Jingming during the individual military drill. At that time, the two of them had even whispered to each other for a while. Looking at their facial features, there were some similarities. If he guessed correctly, this old man must be Chao Jingming's father. You, as his father, came at the right time. I just want to ask what your good son is going to do. At that time, I made him suffer a little. I heard that after the individual military exercise, Chao Jingming was also punished a little. But this seemingly inadvertent revenge of his is to kill me. This is too much, this is really too much. Seeing this, old Chao's heart skipped a beat, and he secretly cursed. Before I set off for Ning'ai province, there was a long period of time when I was struggling to find the whereabouts of the poison sect, dark sect, and Lord Wen. Everyone must be clear about what happened later. The mole, Long Ding Tian, took out a piece of information. Of course, although he was a mole, there was no problem with the information he gave. The evil martial artists were indeed hiding in Ning'ai province. But while I was communicating with Long Ding Tian, I got another piece of information from another place. Old Mr. Chow, do you know where this information came from? Chen Guang didn't intend to waste time with him. Instead, he went straight to the point. While speaking, he also carefully observed old Chow's expression. The old man only panicked for a short while, but he was an experienced man after all, so he quickly regained his composure. Perhaps he really knew something, but he pretended to be at a loss and asked calmly, "What's going on?" Chen Guang sighed in his heart. It was really boring and annoying. Someone used the relationship between Jiang Yage and me to pretend to help me by revealing the whereabouts of Lord Wen to her. Then, Jiang Yage relayed this to me. Although this matter seemed to have no impact, after all, whether I knew it or not, I would go to Ning'ai. But it more or less interfered with my judgment and made me further lose my vigilance against Long Ding Tian. Old Chow, you really don't know who did this. Seeing that old Chow still wanted to pretend to be ignorant, Chen Guang finally couldn't bear it anymore and slammed the table. It's Chao Jingming. Old Chow, explain to me. Before this, you obviously found out the whereabouts of Wenwen through the Skynet, but why did you hide it from me? I think you probably hoped that Lord Wen would die in Ning'ai province. But why did it come from Chao Jingming's mouth, then from Jiang Yage's side, and then to my ears when I started to investigate? What the hell is he planning? Can I assume that he colluded with Ouyang Tianqing long ago and that his purpose is to send me to Ning'ai province to die? Old Chow's face suddenly turned pale. He had thought that Chen Guang would investigate this matter. This time, he personally led the team here, hoping to communicate with Chen Guang in private. He didn't expect that Chen Guang would be so impatient. Obviously, Chen Guang had recognized him, but he still exposed this matter in public. Chen Guang didn't save him any face and didn't give him any leeway. The other old men in the small conference room all looked at old Chow with different expressions. No one knew what they were thinking. Old Chow braced himself to stand up and put on airs. This. Chen Guang, you can't talk nonsense. You are slandering a senior general. You can't just make empty promises. In fact, the moment he recognized old Chow, Chen Guang had guessed what he was thinking. Today, it seemed that old Chow was leading the team to talk to him about the transfer, but his real purpose was to protect his son. Empty promises. You think I don't have evidence here? He took out his mobile phone and looked down at it. He was so angry that he laughed. Oh, I didn't expect that the special communication system could be tampered with. It turned out that the message that Jiang Yage sent to him on his mobile phone had disappeared. If there was no accident, there would not be a backup of their call recording in the system. It was a pity that he didn't think of saving the call record between him and Jiang Yage at that time, so she wouldn't have it. Well, old Chow, you have done a good job in preparation. I admit defeat. But it's useless to say more. I will only say two things today. First, I can only give up my position as the director of the Guangdong General Bureau. I can't leave just because you want me to. I'm really sorry. It's easy to invite a devil in, but it's hard to send him away. If I don't keep an eye on you, who knows if you will use the Guangdong General Bureau that I built to secretly stab me in the back. Second, Chao Jingming wants my life. I thought you could help me uphold justice, but now it seems that there is no hope. But it doesn't matter. If you don't find trouble with him, I will find trouble with him myself. Old Chow, if you want to protect your son, you can try to stop me. I, Chen Wu. I, Chen Guang, will do what I say. I will never compromise. I want to see how you can stop me. After that, he slammed the door and left, leaving the group of old men in the conference room. Some things turned out this way because of a lot of coincidences. If the old man hadn't looked down on his character from the beginning and tried to hide the information about Wen from him, Chao Jingming wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. Now that things had been done and the gap had been created, it wouldn't be so easy to mend it. Chen Guang didn't mean to blame anyone. From the perspective of the old masters, most of the time, they couldn't just consider their personal feelings when making decisions. Governing a big country was like cooking a small dish. Many things that seemed casual and seemingly trivial were actually decisions that they had made after careful consideration. In a sense, their decision was a bit despicable, but it was actually a good thing for the country. Chen Guang could understand the logic, but he couldn't accept it emotionally. If it was someone else who was unlucky, Chen Guang would say that it didn't matter at all. But since they wanted to deceive him and he was the one who was secretly tripped up by Chao Jingming, then I'm sorry, but you've stepped on my tail. I'm very angry now, so someone has to be unlucky. For the sake of Lin Jingwei, Bai Hua, Jiang Yage, and Jin Shiyue, I won't pursue your previous concealment. In the past, with my identity and status, it was my greatest honor to see you in person instead of on TV. If you could say a few words to me, it would be my greatest honor. However, things are different now. I'm no longer that ignorant brat from before. I'm no longer an unremarkable university student who hasn't even graduated yet. I'm now the Saint Emperor of the true martial continent. Perhaps Chen Guang's temper would be much better after he woke up from his nap and sat here to chat with others. The main reason why Chen Guang still hadn't broken away from the Jinwu Holy Emperor state was also the main reason. So in the past, he often felt that he wasn't suitable for politics. If he was really a two-faced person, even if he was still a holy emperor, he would still be a thick-skinned holy emperor. He wouldn't have fallen out with old man Chow in public. Instead, he would have chosen to pretend to be polite to old man Chow. Even if he secretly killed Chao Jingming later, as long as he didn't get any evidence, it wouldn't be a big deal. As soon as Chen Guang left, the old men looked at each other. They didn't expect that a proper meeting would end up like this. Old Chao, could what he said be true? One of the old men asked. Old man Chao waved his hand. How is that possible? Although Jingming is sometimes immature, this is a matter of principle. Of course, he couldn't admit it. At this moment, his heart was filled with hatred. If you talk about this in private, we can discuss any compensation you want. I'll find a way to satisfy you. As long as there are enough benefits, is there anything in this world that can't be discussed? What kind of attitude is this? Are you threatening us? From what you're saying, you want to do it yourself and do it privately. How can you have such thoughts? Chao Jingming waved his hand helplessly, signaling for the meeting to end. All right, let's not interact with other people from the Guangdong General Headquarters for now. Today's matter will end here. We've just arrived, so let's take a rest and discuss tomorrow. He turned to look in the direction of Yan Jing and thought to himself, what should I do now? This son of mine is stupid. I've punished him before, but this time, I really can't let him get away with it. Otherwise, he'll be sent to the military court for a major crime, a capital crime. Chapter 920. When Chen Guang came out of the meeting room, he was also unhappy. He didn't want to stay in the headquarters anymore. He said goodbye to Axian Qin, who had been following him, and went to the parking lot to drive his car. Can't you let me have a good night's sleep? After thinking about it, he decided to go to his Tianguang manager's office. He had no other purpose. He just wanted to go there to sleep so that he wouldn't be forced to sleep here. In the end, he didn't manage to sleep. Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua came. If Lin Jingwei was alone, Chen Guang would choose to receive him in bed. It's his own business whether he wants to be gay or not. Anyway, I don't want to move. But out of consideration for Big Brother Bai, Chen Guang reluctantly got out of his bed and ran to the office. Little Lin, brother Little Bai, don't tell me you're here to persuade us. Feeling listless, Chen Guang raised his head to look at the clock on the wall. It was already 3 p.m., and it should have been over 40 hours since he last slept in the real world. If it was just not sleeping, it wouldn't be a big problem. But last night, I can't say too much. It's not suitable for children. Even if the Holy Emperor was made of iron, he was still human. He was a little sleepy and needed a nap to refresh himself. Lin Jingwei sighed and sat in front of Chen Guang. Brother Guang, I'm definitely not a persuader. You know me. I hate these things the most. If it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't get involved. But this time, it's your problem. I have to get involved even if I don't want to. Chen Guang understood his difficulties. Fine. Say it. What message did the elders want you to pass on? Lin Jingwei opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he stopped. On the other hand, Bai Hua was more magnanimous. Jingwei's grandfather just found out about Uncle Chao's matter. Grandfather Jiang and Grandfather Jin are also very unhappy. They have already ordered a thorough investigation. Chen Guang nodded his head. This wasn't out of his expectations. Since Chao Jingming's father was the one leading the team, that meant that Chao Jingming intended to hide this matter from the other elders. But it was a pity that Chen Guang couldn't do it. However, he was not optimistic about this thorough investigation. Forget it. Old Chao acted quickly. Now that all the evidence is gone, it's unlikely that Jiang Yage and I will be able to do anything with empty words. I know the ropes. Whether evidence is important or not, it all depends on the person, right? If the person you want to investigate is someone like Chao Jingming, it's impossible to make him pay any price without conclusive evidence. Lin Jingwei nodded. Indeed. You're not going to persuade me to resign? Chen Guang suddenly asked. Lin Jingwei glared at him. What kind of people do you think we are? Even I feel that these old men are too much. I want to help you. When I go back, I will make a scene. This time, I am not representing everyone. It's mainly my grandfather, Grandfather Jean, and Grandfather Jiang. They are afraid that you will hate everyone. As for the others, you can do whatever you want. You really don't need to care about me. I'm just here to smooth things over. But don't worry. You can make as much trouble as you want. Whether it's for the sake of me and Brother Bai, or for the sake of Jiang Yage and Jean Shiyue, you're always half one of us. The sky won't collapse. Speaking of which, Chao Jingming is really hateful. He was afraid that you would not fall for it, so he even used Jiang Yage. Chen Guang smiled. Little Lin, you are really clear about this. Of course. Who do you think I am? Oh right, why don't you tell me how you suddenly became so heaven-defying? Also, what happened to your hand? Many people are telling me in private that it's like a fantasy novel. It's so scary. As Lin Jingwei was making a scene, he grabbed Chen Guang's right hand and looked at it carefully. Your skin, TSK. My brother, you're awesome. Could the rumors be wrong? The situation was too dangerous, and someone made a mistake. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Come, let me tell you a story. Actually, my hand had exploded. My blood was spurting out like a fountain. Lin Jingwei was still in disbelief. Impossible. Chen Guang continued. You're the one who asked me. I told you, but you didn't believe me. What happened next is even more unbelievable. Have you heard of suicide by cutting one's wrist? Yes, why? Think about it. Cutting one's wrist is just a small cut on the wrist, and you can die on the spot. My entire hand exploded, and the blood spurted out. It's 10 times more powerful than cutting one's wrist, right? That's true, but I still don't believe it. I don't care if you believe it or not. In any case, I was already dead. After I died, I transmigrated to a place called Jinwu Continent. I possessed the body of the Shao family's trash illegitimate child. Could it be that you were once a genius, and then inexplicably became a third-level Doli? Chen Guang said seriously, of course not. Jinwu Continent doesn't study Do Qi, but inner strength. Well, in a sense, you can think of it as Do Qi. In short, I lived in Jinwu Continent for 137,861 years and became the Saint Emperor of that world. Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua felt that they didn't have enough to roll their eyes. Then you broke through the void and came back. You even reconstructed your body and grew your hand back. Bai Hua, who had been listening to the story, couldn't help but complain. Chen Guang clapped his hands. That's right. That's it. Lin Jingwei pointed at him with a trembling finger, speechless for a long time. Damn. Brother Guang, your ability to talk nonsense with a straight face is getting better and better. Chen Guang shrugged helplessly. See? I tried to explain it to you, but you didn't believe me. You thought I was talking nonsense. Bastard. Normal people can't be trusted. Chen Guang almost laughed out loud. Poor little Lin. Other than the fact that I'm not a third-level Doli, I didn't lie to you. Of course, he didn't expect Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua to believe him. All right. Enough with your fantasy stories. I'd rather believe that you're like Big Sister Wenwen. You're like Zhang Wuji. You learned inner strength. It's like practicing the heaven and earth great shift with the 9-yang divine art. You're awesome. I admire you, okay? Chen Guang laughed. Of course. It's good that you know that. Show me some respect in the future. I've always respected you, okay? I'm almost kneeling on the ground and licking your toes. Anyway, you have to give me some face. You can't completely fall out with my grandpa. I'm begging you. Chen Guang nodded. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Bai Hua wanted to say something else, but Lin Jingwei had already made his stance clear. Although Chen Guang didn't say anything, his attitude was very clear. There was no point in saying anything more. He could only sigh and say, no matter what, I don't want you to fall out with the elders. Chen Guang's relationship with Bai Hua wasn't as close as it was with Lin Jingwei. He just laughed. Don't worry. It won't reach that point. Chen Guang didn't chat with the two for long before they left together. It wasn't hard for Chen Guang to guess how they would reply to the elders when they got back. Thinking about it, it was probably because the old masters were in the wrong, so they had to give him an explanation. Chen Guang wasn't worried that his seemingly stubborn performance would cause the elders to have thoughts that they shouldn't have. First of all, they didn't know the depth of his current strength. They were afraid, even more afraid than they were of the previous martial artists. Because he was stronger than the previous martial artists. Countless times stronger. In the past, Wenwen was enough to make them fearful. In order to rope in Wenwen, they would almost agree to everything. But the truth was that Ouyang Tianqing was stronger than Wenwen. He could even easily escape from the Guangding General Headquarters and the Security Bureau, make a comeback, and even defeat Wenwen. But now, Chen Guang had almost killed Ouyang Tianqing, who had just defeated Wenwen, with one hand. It was as easy as killing an ant. Then, compared to Ouyang Tianqing or Wenwen, the current Chen Guang was even stronger. And unlike the others, he had a huge influence on the international and domestic networks. Fortunately, he didn't have a strong desire for power, nor did he have any utilitarian heart. To him, he seemed to be more intoxicated by the sense of achievement that fame brought. He was almost perfect. His only flaw was that he had a bad temper and wasn't tolerant enough. This was an unstable part of him. But to the elders, this was a headache for them, but also a good thing. They didn't have to worry about him having any bad intentions. He couldn't do that. But the elders were also afraid that with his honesty and innocence, he would be used by others. So, they planned to find a place for him after the situation stabilized. But they might have coincidentally bumped into Chao Jingming, which made him unhappy. They were a bit too hasty, and in the end, it became like this. Also, to the elders, although Chao Jingming was in the wrong, he was still a high-ranking general. He was also the favorite of old man Chao, who had worked hard for so many years. His merits and demerits offset each other. Even if the father and son of the Chao family were wrong in hiding the information, Chen Guang didn't have to hold on to it. He didn't want to kill them. They felt that perhaps Chen Guang was a bit too arrogant. In short, the current situation was that it was hard for everyone to back down. It wasn't appropriate to completely cater to Chen Guang's wishes and get rid of Chao Jingming. But they didn't consider his mood at all. It seemed that he wouldn't stop for a while. After thinking about it, the elders couldn't come up with a good strategy. So, they hurriedly sent Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua to find Chen Guang. They wanted to use their relationship with Chen Guang to smooth things over. They didn't expect that Lin Jingwei's but was also crooked from the beginning. Not only did he not persuade Chen Guang, but he also expressed his attitude as Brother Guang, don't be afraid. If you continue to be stubborn, the elders will definitely be afraid. If Lin Jingwei's attitude really reached the ears of the elders, they would probably be so angry that their backs would hurt. Smoothing things over actually didn't have much effect, but it succeeded in making Chen Guang collapse even more. So sleepy. After sending off Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua, he took off his clothes and was about to crawl into bed when he received another call. Presumably, it was Lin Jingwei, who had just left, reporting back to the elders about the results of their negotiations. Chapter 921. Hello, little Chin. I'm Lin Jingwei's grandfather. On the other side of the phone, an old man's voice came straight to the point. He could ignore other people, but he had to respect little Lin's grandfather. Chen Guang forcefully shook his head and pulled himself together. Hello, Grandpa Lin. Little Chen, I already know what happened. I'd like to apologize to you first. Grandpa Lin, you're too kind. What happened before was indeed our fault for not being thorough enough. We didn't mean to harm Sect Master 1 on purpose. On one hand, we considered that Sect Master 1 had always been very strong. She suddenly left like that, and even the other members of the Wen family didn't know where she went. This meant that she had absolute confidence in her own strength, and believed that not only would others not be able to help her, they might even be a burden to her. At the same time, we also considered that the Guangding General Bureau has just been established, and the people's hearts are not stable yet. We shouldn't act rashly. Chen Guang didn't agree with what he said, but since he had already said it, arguing with him over the phone was meaningless. It would only make things difficult for Lin Jingwei. He simply replied, Yes, I understand that. That's why I haven't used this matter. To be honest, I don't care about the position of chief director. Grandpa Lin, you know what I really care about. You're talking about little Chow, right? Chen Guang said without hesitation, that's right. He was really tired of bargaining with others. If it wasn't for the fact that he was too sleepy, if it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to sleep, he really wanted to fly to Yanjing right now and crush Chao Jingming's bones one by one. For ordinary people, his desire for revenge might be a little too strong. But unfortunately, the old man was now the true martial saint emperor. He had a bad temper and couldn't tolerate even a little grievance. We only found out about this today, so I won't defend little Chow for now. After all, the matter hasn't been confirmed yet. You can't just kill him, can you? The matter hasn't been confirmed yet. Little Chen, you can't punish him like this. But I can promise you that we will find out the truth. If little Chow really did something wrong, we will definitely make him apologize to you, okay? Chen Guang almost laughed out loud. Apologize? Grandpa Lin, isn't this a little too light? Old Master Lin was secretly unhappy. Little Chen, even if little Chow might have made a mistake, he still made a lot of contributions and has quite a bit of prestige in the army. He is one of the next generation of generals that we are focusing on nurturing. Even if he really did do it, he didn't cause too serious of an evil consequence. Where it is possible to forgive people, one should forgive them. Chen Guang countered with a question, Grandpa Lin, nothing can be accomplished without rules. Chao Jingming's actions are equivalent to betraying the country. According to your rules, how should we punish him? What if he hadn't been the one who'd committed the crime, but an ordinary person? It's impossible for you to just apologize and say that you should forgive and forget. So you want him to die? Old Master Lin suppressed his unhappiness and asked in a joking yet serious manner. Chen Guang replied, If you have rules that are convincing, then follow them. If you don't, or if you can't do it, then I will follow my own rules. Maybe what I said is not very pleasing to the ears and may make you a little embarrassed, but I can only apologize. I am just like that. After Chen Guang finished speaking, he took the initiative to hang up the phone. On the other side, old Master Lin was stunned at first, then his face turned red with anger. There was actually someone in this world who dared to take the initiative to hang up on him. And he was so impatient. This little Chen's arrogance really reached the sky. Seeing this, an old man next to him slammed the table angrily. Chen Guang is simply too lawless. If it's all based on subjective conjecture, do we really have to follow his wishes and arrest little Chow? He's clearly arrogant and conceited, putting everyone else in his eyes. Another person said, in my opinion, it's probably because our attitude towards him in the past was too good, making him feel too good about himself and unable to distinguish the severity of the situation. We should just remove him from his position in the Guangding General Headquarters. If he dares to resist, his family. Bam! At the side, the big baldy, old Jiang, was furious. Old Yi, what nonsense are you talking about? How could Chen Guangli's contributions be any worse than Xiao Chao's achievements? If not for him, would there be the Guangding General Headquarters now? If not for him, wouldn't Ouyang Tianqing still be at large, making us feel like we have a fishbone in our throats? How can you have such thoughts? If you really make a scene like this, believe it or not, I will be the first to pull out a gun and shoot you. Come. You come. I'm a coward if I'm afraid of you. Old Master Lin's frown deepened. All of you, shut up. All of you, stop talking. Baldy old Jiang sat down, still angry. He glared at old Master Yi. This is ridiculous. Back then, you were the one who agreed to push Ouyang Tianqing to the position of the Special Affairs Bureau Chief. We haven't even held you accountable for this. Now you actually have such thoughts. Have you been living like a dog all these years? You! Old Master Yi was about to explode again, but old Master Lin glared at him again. He sat down helplessly, knowing that what he had said earlier was unpopular. He had gone overboard. However, he was also anxious. Old Chow had begged him over the phone in tears. He sympathized with his old brother. At this time, old Master Jean said in a steady tone, although I don't know what happened to Chen Guang that made his personality different from before, making him seem a little violent and stubborn, I think he's still a good person. His hatred for evil hasn't changed. He's right about one thing. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Those who make mistakes should pay the price. It's just that some people acted too quickly. Now that there's no evidence, and little Chen is stubborn and unwilling to give in, the situation is in a stalemate for the time being. His attitude is also very clear. If we don't come up with a convincing decision, I'm afraid he won't let the matter go. We don't want to see things develop to that point, and we can't force him to go against us just because of this. Don't forget, with his personality, it's possible that he would do something like this. When he was just an ordinary student, he once fought to the death with Su Lijing and his son from Gokyo University. At that time, this matter caused an uproar in the country, and in the end, both Su Lijing and his son lost their lives. If we're talking about the disparity in status, the difference between him and Su Lijing back then is much greater than the difference between him and us now. Furthermore, it was said that those who practice martial arts all had a courageous and diligent heart. In the path of martial arts, they especially pursued a clear mind. Otherwise, it would form a demonic barrier in their hearts, and there was even the risk of qi deviation. I think that the change in his personality has something to do with the change in his personal strength. The world's #1 martial artist, of course, has the world's #1 sharp heart. He's not willing to lower his head because he's afraid that his Daoist heart is unstable. Old Man Yi sneered and said, "Old Jean, I'm afraid that you've been reading too many useless wuxia novels recently. Where's your Daoist heart?" Old Man Jean did not mind this person's disdain and only smiled. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. Although the martial artists depicted in wuxia novels might not be completely correct, they still have some value for reference. Those martial artists have never left any ancient records for us. From our standpoint, if we want to understand them, other than gathering information, there's no harm in reading novels. All the old men fell silent. Although they felt that Old Man Jin's analysis was a little strange, it was not without reason. However, this was not good news. If it really involved that unreasonable Daoist heart, it would only prove that there was no possibility of Qin Guang retreating. Then, no one would be able to change his decision. However, the situation had finally stabilized, and no one could bear the severe consequences of forcing him onto the same path as Ouyang Tianqing. However, these old men were old now, and they appreciated each other. They pitied Old Man Chao and could not bear to see Old Man Chao and his son pay a heavy price for this. They did not want to admit that Qin Guang had not fallen out with them, but everyone knew that they and their families had special rights. If they made a mistake, they did not need to receive the harshest punishment like normal people. To be honest, it's still old Zhang's granddaughter's problem. Why are you talking about this with Qin Guang? Another old man who was also on Chao Xingming's side said sarcastically. When baldy old Jiang heard that, he was angry. Yo, didn't you just say that you don't have any evidence? Now you're blaming my granddaughter? Isn't this just showing that he's hiding something? My granddaughter is young, kind, and naive. She was deceived by some uncles with evil intentions. Isn't that uncle even more hateful? Today, he betrayed Qin Guang. Tomorrow, he'll betray all of us. Do you believe me? When we go to the underworld of the underworld, let's see who still has the face to speak up for him. In my opinion, we should arrest him now and interrogate him. Even if we don't have any evidence, we can still get some if we interrogate him. Old Jiang, your way of thinking is a little biased. We all know that, so I won't beat around the bush. If Xiao Chao really did this, I think that what really angered Qin Guang might not be the fact that he was betrayed or plotted against. Old Zhang's granddaughter should be a girl who is as innocent as a piece of white paper. She would never get involved in these things. I think she must be under a lot of pressure this time. Based on my guess about Qin Guang, he might be feeling indignant for old Zhang's granddaughter. The other old man said something that was clear. But isn't he close to old Jin's granddaughter? Old Zhang's granddaughter. The other old men swept their gazes over the two old men's faces with deep meaning. Old Jiang and old Jin couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Old man Jin, on the other hand, was quick to calm down. Young people should deal with their own matters. I've never interfered. Besides, Qin Guang and my granddaughter are innocent now, but old Qin is right. But what old Qin said just now is right. Even if it's just for the sake of friendship, it's reasonable for him to stand up for Solomon. Old Jiang also said anxiously, yes. They're just friends. That brat, Qin Guang, is too dirty. Even if Solomon has such thoughts, I will definitely not agree to it. Chapter 922. Forget it, I won't ask about it. If this was really the case, then the one who tied the bell should be the one to untie it. It would be better to let Solomon talk about it. If Solomon could persuade him, then there would be a solution that everyone would be satisfied with. Not only can it satisfy him, but it can also save Xiao Chao from eternal damnation. Let's make a compromise. Old Man Lin seemed to be planning to make a final decision on this matter. Old Jiang was anxious. What do you mean? Don't tell me you want me to send my granddaughter away. No way. Old Jiang, don't worry. It's better for young people to talk to each other. It's much more effective than talking to old men like us. Didn't you just say that Qin Guang and your granddaughter are just friends? Let her persuade him. It'll work, it'll work. Old Jiang was stuck in his heart and couldn't say anything for a long time. Old Jean also tried to persuade him. Don't think too much. You've seen Solomon's situation these 2 days. If you don't give her an explanation, are you just going to watch her lose her appetite and lose weight day by day? Old Jiang, you really have to change your temper. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Look, I never asked about it and nothing happened, right? You mean the same. Aren't you afraid that your Shuriyue will find out? Shuriyue told me a lot of things, but I didn't tell you. Don't worry, the two of them grew up together. They are not biological sisters, but they are closer than biological sisters. They can handle these things by themselves. You're thinking too much. This is not giving her granddaughter away. It's just letting the young people talk about it. Old Jiang sighed. Okay, actually, everyone pretended to be ignorant and felt like they were deceiving themselves. However, due to the two old men Jean and Zhang's faces, even if they were well aware of it, they did not expose it. It was a dilemma. Now that Xiao Qin had become like this, everyone was in a dilemma. But soon, everyone was no longer in a dilemma. Old Jiang made a phone call and looked at everyone speechless for a long time, feeling very embarrassed. What's wrong? Old Jiang thumped his chest and stamped his feet. My good granddaughter has already flown to the 5 capitals this morning. He wanted to say that a grown girl couldn't be kept at home, but it was really embarrassing, and he felt even more ashamed to see anyone. Young people know how to handle things well. That's right. It would be best if we could just let this matter go. This group of old men, no matter what they said, had never made plans for the worst. At the end of the day, they still wanted to protect Qiao Jingming. They did not realize that this was the fundamental conflict between them and Qin Guang, the true martial holy emperor. The final outcome of this meeting was that poor Master Guang still didn't manage to sleep. He used to think that he was an Iron Man who could not sleep for days and nights, but he could actually do it in the past. Even now, he was not particularly mentally exhausted. After all, the internal strength in his body was constantly circulating, making his spiritual will and body much stronger than ordinary people. But now, his main problem was not mental exhaustion, but the fact that he could not get enough rest. When he thought about problems and communicated with others, he could not completely break away from the state of the true martial holy emperor. This situation had actually happened to him before. For example, when he first entered the Sea of Moments, he accidentally glanced at Bai Fan with a murderous look that he had trained on the pirate ship. At that time, Bai Fan was shocked. This time, he had stayed in the true martial land for a longer time, and the residual memories in his heart had a greater impact on his personality after he came out. So much so that he was not completely relieved even after more than a day. Fortunately, after he became the true martial holy emperor, he had taken the path of a just and peaceful king, so that he did not appear to be hostile on the outside. Although he was overbearing when he communicated with others, he was not too scary. But he still felt very uncomfortable and awkward. He always felt that he was not his normal self. When he was chatting with Lin Jingwei just now, he deliberately talked about the Xiao family's illegitimate child. It seemed casual, but it was actually deliberate. He forced himself to use his acting skills to restrain himself, so that Lin Jingwei did not feel uncomfortable. It was a little hard to say, but it was not difficult to understand. He was using the skills of the best actor in history to act, but he was playing his old self. But this was not the way to go. Even if he was the best actor, no matter how good his acting skills were, he would not want to live in his own play forever, right? But today was simply too strange. Usually, he would sleep whenever he wanted. Even in the classroom, then he would sleep even more sweetly. But today, such a small wish like sleeping had become an extravagant dream. This time was even worse than before. He did not even have time to take off his clothes before his phone rang again. He did not want to see who was calling at all. He wanted to throw the phone out the window, but considering that he was on the 15th floor of Lita building, it would be a big problem if he threw something down from here and hit someone, so he endured it. He fiercely grabbed the phone from beside his pillow and gritted his teeth as he muttered. No matter who it was, if they called me now, then they must be my enemy. Death grudge. If it's an insurance salesman, I'll buy your company and fire you. If it's asking if I want to invest, I'll smear your lousy fund to death in my live broadcast room and Weibo and get your boss to fire you. If it's a phone scam, then I'm really sorry. No matter where you are, you can't escape from my revenge. With this thought in mind, his gaze fell on the phone screen. In the next second, he switched to a caring and warm man mode. Hi. Why did you think of calling me at this time? Chen Guang's voice sounded especially gentle. Although he would not normally talk to Jiang Yage like this was a very special time. Because of Chao Xingming's matter, she had been blaming herself a lot in the past 2 days and was feeling very fragile. Just as he hung up on old Master Lin's phone, Jiang Yage called again. Chen Guang thought to himself that she could not possibly be persuaded to become a lobbyist, could she? This was going to be a little difficult. This was really not impossible. Although Jiang Yage was usually mischievous and tough, she was soft inside, which complemented Jin Shuriyue, who was soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Just like the situation of the two families, the Jin family never interfered with Jin Shuriyue's love affairs. Perhaps the Jin family was open-minded, or perhaps the Jin family knew that it was useless to interfere. As for Jiang Yage, although she took the initiative in her actions and looked cheerful, generous, and heroic, when it came to her grandfather, she would show a troubled expression from time to time, which meant that her personal feelings were actually more interfered with by her family. It was just that she had been hiding it well, so she had not been interfered with. Are you at the company now? I'm already at the entrance of your company. Can I come in to see you? Chen Guang was stunned. Well, is this a vegetable market or a reception center? Batch after batch of people came. He finally understood that the old men in Yanjing were planning to use the technique of fatigue bombing to make him dizzy, and then let go of him in a daze. If it was someone else, after guessing the other party's purpose, he would not see them. But this was one of the main characters, Jiang Yage, so he had to see them. You're wearing a mask, right? No one recognized you, right? I'm wearing a mask. Chen Guang thought for a moment. You go downstairs to the underground parking lot, Area B, number 32. I'll come down immediately. You're a big star, and I'm quite ostentatious now. If someone sees you coming to my company to find me, there might be some scandal. Jiang Yage thought it was reasonable, so she took the elevator to the underground parking lot. She stood in front of his car for less than a minute, and Chen Guang came downstairs with 2 panda eyes. Chen Guang saw that she was always absent-minded from time to time, and was not as active as before. It seemed that there was a heavy mountain in her heart, and he felt sorry for her. Why did you come alone? Where's Shuriyue? Aren't the two of you always together? Chen Guang started the car and asked, Where do you live? I'll send you to your place first. It's easy to be seen talking outside. Jiang Yage nodded with a heavy heart, and then sighed. Sister Shuriyue is still filming in Beijing, and I've been doing my best to film her scenes for the past 2 days. I'll take 2 days off first. There are some scenes that I can't do, and I'll let my stunt double take them. I'm not in the right state to film these 2 days. Didn't I say it over the phone? I don't blame you for this. Who would have thought that Chao Xingming would be so despicable? didn't you do it to help me? But I'm angry. Uncle Chow watched me grow up, and I didn't expect him to. Sigh. Chen Guang heard that there was a hidden meaning in her words, and he thought that she was right. She was really sent to persuade them. He was also angry in his heart. The old masters were really unscrupulous. From their standpoint, it might not be a problem for them to do so. Chao Jingming's identity was special, and if he was really unlucky, it might indicate that their special status had been affected by him. This seemed like a simple matter, but it was gradually magnified, and it became his privilege to provoke them alone. Now that Chen Guang was 100,000 years old, he certainly understood this logic. But understanding did not mean approval. When you needed me, you gave me special privileges. Now that you don't need me, and seeing that I have a good temper, you're starting to want to maintain your authority in front of me. You guys, I'm so disappointed. After that, Chen Guang did not say much, and drove the car with Jiang Yage to the Yinyang Hotel where she was staying. Although this hotel was a little old, it had a very special status in Wujing City. Most of the leaders would stay here when they came to Wujing for public inspection. The Yinyang Hotel occupied a large area, and it was built outside the Wujing Third Ring Road. In addition to several suites, there were more than 10 villas. Jiang Yage stayed in one of the villas. Chen Guang directly took Jiang Yage's room card, swiped the door of the villa, and opened it. In this place, there was no need to worry about being secretly photographed and reported. After entering the room, Chen Guang sat on the sofa. He was not in a hurry to take the initiative to speak, but wanted to see what Jiang Yage was going to say. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.